Eriwo ya. Eriwo ya. Eriwo ya. Ayakpo, ayakto, ayakje, ayamu. O meriwo simpe. Ìbà Olódùmarè, ọba àṣẹ fèrè kí ayé, ìbà tí òjò, ìbà tí òrùn, ìbà dé ojú èéfì kò yé rí, ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà lè gbín, ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà lójú kò tún, ìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà lójú kò sín, ìbà àkọ́dá, ìbà ṣẹ́dá, ìbà ọbàrìṣà nífẹ̀ẹ́, ìbà alájẹlú nífẹ̀ẹ́, ìbà ọbàdùnrin nífẹ̀ẹ́, ìbà olóyè fọ̀ṣù ìbọ́dímì olú ní àbígbà, ìbà ifá gbàmílá, ìbà olúṣọlá akérédọ́ọ̀lù, ìbà arẹbọlójúfẹ́, ìbà ìyànjú òye, ìbà ìkúnkún, ìbà bàbá, ìbà yèyé, ìbà lọ́fìn ògúnfún mi níre, ìbà bọ́pọ̀ àwọ̀, ìbà ojúpọ̀nà, ìbà ọmọ dúdúwà. Ọ̀rúnmìlà dákun dábò pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́. Ọ̀rúnmìlà dákun dábò pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́. Ọ̀rúnmìlà dákun dábò pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́ pẹ̀lẹ́. Lọ́tún lósì àyíra oṣù pẹ̀lẹ́ 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 o pẹ̀lẹ́ o. Àpọ́n bí ọkọ̀, àkọ́ bí ọkọ̀, àpọ̀npọ̀npọ̀npọ̀n, àkọ́kọ́ wálé, kọ̀kọ́kọ̀, ẹnìkọ̀kọ̀lẹ̀ pàkọ́tà, àpọ̀tọ̀ fílé, rẹ̀sílé, tìkúnlé nílé kiri ọ̀nàpẹ́ ọkọ̀, kúnlẹ̀ o, wà pọ̀tọ̀, kùnà ṣẹ́ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́, wà pọ̀tọ̀, kùnà ṣẹ́ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́, ọ̀pọ̀tọ̀, kùnà ṣẹ́ pẹ́lẹ́pẹ́lẹ́, àkọ́rẹ́lẹ́ mẹ́dáadáa, sípàdà yégèrè, sípàdà kùnà ìlàjà gúnyín, ọmọnà kan bẹ̀rẹ̀ wọ́jẹ̀, ọtí síkò àtẹ, ọmọ bẹ̀bẹ̀, títí kò kò mẹ́ka lẹ́sìn ọtí ìlànà kílì títí gbẹ̀ẹ́nì kórèrè jẹ́ o wọn kò mọ̀ bá Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣọ́wọ́pọ̀ kí ni máa rere ajé ẹjẹ́ yìí níbàní bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ya àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣọ́wọ́ kí ni máa rere aya yìí níbàní bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ọmọ àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣọ́wọ́ kí ni máa rere ọmọ níbàní bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ilé àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣọ́wọ́ kí ni máa rere ilé yìí níbàní bẹ́ẹ̀ náà ẹṣin àkìbà Ọ̀rúnmìlà ṣọ́wọ́ kí ni máa rere ẹṣin ńlá o. Máa kún ṣá o àyàmọ́ bí òṣìkà kọ́ lọ́ba ní ifá ẹṣin ńlá o. Máa kún ṣá o. Àṣẹ o ẹsẹ̀ wà dé pẹ̀lẹ́ wá pẹ̀lẹ́ lẹ́ o wáyé pèrè gbìn ẹ láwo ẹ lámì ẹ dà mí pẹ́. Akínyànsó akínyànkùn òṣètèrè ni wọ́n fò bí lóde ṣètú àjànláwè ni wọ́n fò bí lóde ìláwè wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmọ tí wá wọ́n ní ọtí yọ fínko wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmọ ẹmú wá wọ́n ní ẹmú náà ní òṣè o wọ́n ní kí wọ́n ọmú omi tútù wá wọ́n ní hàn. Ìgbà yìí lẹ́nu mi tó ìfín ìgbà yìí lẹ́nu mi tó ìré o. Ìfà fún kòlógbò tí yóò ké ní ìgbìngbìrè ẹbọ ní oníkó wá ṣe ọ̀bẹ̀pọ̀ orúkọ oníkòlógbò tẹnu wúré kòlógbò kí o wúré tàjé kí o ré tàyà kí o ré tọ̀mọ́ kí o ré tèrè pọ́pọ́ kí o mú tàìkú kí o fi pẹ̀lú ré kòlógbò lẹ́nu wúré o. Àṣẹ wà lé o àṣẹ wà. Àbọ̀wú àbọ̀yẹ̀ àbọ̀ ṣíṣe àgbọ̀ àtọ̀ ẹ̀sọ̀rẹ̀ gúrùwò fún. This is Babo Poisonwo if I call it if I die, though. Flip it around. So, my main topic today is when to say when. Right? That's what I'm saying today. When to say when. Because there are times that we should just walk away. Right? And the way that I'm speaking of it specifically is when do we say that we don't, this situation of learning, is primarily what I'm speaking of, is not necessarily conducive to where you need to be. When to say when. When is a time where you feel like, because ultimately it's your Ori Inu that we follow, that we seek. Please like, subscribe, share, follow. Subscribe. Follow. Appreciate you. When? When do we say, okay, we're not, this isn't going to work for me anymore because I maybe things just aren't flowing in a certain kind of way, or I don't think that this is like um, aiding my development or my growth, right? Um, One thing I always say, in unison with a lot of other things, is that if you are in the midst of, if you're at a place for more than 6 months, learning wise, right? If you're learning and have been there for 6 months, and the only thing that you can possibly do, thank you for sharing a live too, Ty Solo. I appreciate you. Thank you for all those subscribers. I appreciate you. Appreciate you. So all those that are not subscribed cannot comment, and pretty soon, I just got to figure it out how to do the subscribe, subscribers only, um, and people can look in, but they can't engage. Or first part of it will be for subscribers only, and then a latter half will be for them. So I'm trying to figure that out in there. But anyway, um, when do we say, when the topic to back up because I'm fumbling my words. When to say when to say, oh, it's enough. I'm not going to engage. Aboye. I see you popping up there. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
I'm not being shy. I'm letting you get in the
Aboye.
Abaru Abu, yeah, but she said,
Uh-huh. So that's why I said, don't, when we think of a place that we've been in or a place that we've studied for 6 months, a year, 3 months, what's, first of all, what is your goal? And I'm speaking about spiritually, not just in relationships and things like that, but specifically about a place that you're studying. Why did I think about this like this? Just because I think it's important to think about what it is that you want to know, or what is it that you seek to do, right? That's why I say when to say when, because if you're not feeling like you're progressing, then why? Because it may just be that type. Boy, I see silent wisdom. Come on now, come on up here. But so it's just like sometimes we get into these situations and we're trying to figure out um, what are some of the things, basic things that we should be learning, right? Now, every teacher is going to teach you completely different. That's fact. Ah, yo.
Abaru Abu, yeah, but she said.
What are you really seeking to learn in this situation? You have to be honest with yourself too, because sometimes, like I know when I first got started, I wanted to learn everything. I wanted it all. Give me it all. Give me everything you can get, right? Um, but what is it actually that you really want to express or connect to or build with when you're dealing with folks in the tradition? That's primarily what I'm talking about is in the tradition, what are you seeking to really understand or learn about a person or a place or a thing or whatever the case may be, right? What is it that's going to bring up understanding? Because the more that we understand that, thank you. The more that we understand that, the more we actually can build on other things, right? Maybe it's just the way that um, maybe it's the way that we deal with our own personality. Maybe the person is not conducive to our own personality or our own things that we seek to accomplish, right? Because sometimes that's true too. Just because somebody's doing a tradition, there's like 50 million others that do it too, right? So it's not that you may be in a situation where, okay, I'm online and I may find somebody. Best way to connect, build with that person in a way that you're getting all that you need to do. But first, you have to understand what is it that you want. Right? What do you physically want? Um, and so for me, that generally that happens when I do a divination for someone first. and then we go into okay. So 2 weeks after that, you finish the ebo. Then 2 weeks after the divination ebo. Then 2 weeks after that ebo, generally, unless it comes up in a reading, what else is going on? You know what I'm saying? Do you want to study? Do you not want to study? Do you want to go forward? Do you not want to go forward? And so, reason why I'm bringing this stuff up is because it's important to realize what your life goal is, what your purpose is, what kinds of things and personality, what really is your personality and your learning style. Because not everybody, even though they may have everything that you want to learn, they may not be teaching it in your learning style, right? Um, it may be to the fact that some people may um, come to you in a way that this is real foul, right? Um, because they're trying to get a point across. Or maybe they come from the school of thought that they feel that everybody needs to like be involved, right? From the jump, which is good. Thank you, Tay. I appreciate you. Um, but I think that's important because once we start to go into that mode of thinking, what do I want? Okay, so we have a lot of lofty ideas at the beginning, of course. I want to do this. I want to know herbs. I want to do this. I want to do that. But in reality, though, think about when you were a child. And I know I'm jumping a few places, but think about when you were a child, did you pop out the womb running? That makes sound whatever, but I mean, think about it like that. Nobody popped out the womb just jumping up and just rolling, right? That's impossible. Because if that was possible, I like that you emphasize finding the right teacher for you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you have to. Tai Solo, come on up, please. But I think that's really important to do so because when you really have to think about, is this person going to be breaking it down for me in a way that I can understand it, or can I really understand their accent, right? Because that may not be a problem, but is it somebody that I could build with enough, or is it somebody that I've talked to and had a conversation with? Thank you for that boat. I appreciate you. Uh, thank you for the fire. Appreciate it. Uh, but what does that really mean? We talk about being in a situation where you feel comfortable enough, right? And the reason why I gave this scenario of a child coming out the womb running is because that's possible. That doesn't happen, right? There's no scenario on this earth that's ever happened, except Kirikou. I kid. But so, when we think about that, when we're looking at these aspects of our own personality, do we react as well when somebody's hollering, screaming at us? Do we react well when someone is actually going in? Do we actually seek to really study, or is we're only there to kind of on the fringe things, right? What are we actually seeking to do in this life, right? Because not everybody's really willing to do that. Sometimes you just want to be in a situation just to kind of camaraderie, and that's okay too. But know the situation that you're walking into. Know when to say when. Um, know how to ask questions. That's a part of it too, though. It's not just always listening. It's knowing how to ask the right questions that build up into a greater understanding of what it is that you seek to learn, right? Because sometimes we may just not know what to ask. Exactly. Solo, you want to speak on that?
Abu Rabo, yeah, Abu Sise.
Ah, boy, to us, go to a phone.
I don't know if you remember, I think last week you did a live and there was a young lady that came on and she was emphasizing about how in a practice where your destiny can be so exposed and you're dealing with people who can see where you're going and how it's very important not to just connect with anybody, to find the right person to guide you and teach you and learn from.
Yeah, that's real, and that's real. What are your thoughts on that when you heard that and just what I was just saying?
Um, when you say when to say when or like knowing when to basically disconnect or um, reroute when it comes to learning Ifa and learning this tradition. Because, you're not going to always mesh with one person, and it's just like the chemistry has to be right. You got to understand their tonality and how they present the information. And then sometimes, they're just as human as you are. So then, you know, your personalities might not mix. So
Okay.
finding the right teacher is very important and knowing when to say, okay, well, I think this leg of my journey is over. It's time to go to another level and giving yourself the grace to do that and giving yourself the mobility to say, okay, maybe I might need to connect with someone else. This might not be working, too long. So yeah, I think that's a very important key right there.
Yeah, I mean, because I look at it that way where I've been in situations where I thought I was learning too slow, or that the teacher was teaching me too little at the time, right? But in reality, it was the learning style and the teaching style. So I have to also kind of figure out, okay, so now they're not going to teach like the last teacher that I had, or they're not going to do the things other teachers that I dealt with, because they maybe come from a different perspective or a different lineage, right? And so I always I want to kind of see, what people are thinking about that too. Tay, now that you're up, put you on spot. So, based off of what you've heard so far, what are your thoughts on that? When you say we talked about a little bit in other past lives, but how do you see that specifically when you come in
I think
to
it's I think it's very important to be mindful of who you're opening up yourself to, for the specific reason of, it kind of goes back on what he said as far as, certain things being exposed, because um if it's not the right person, or if it's not someone who is of sound mind and morals, they may have other agendas or other intentions. And so you have to be careful with that. But also knowing, when your spirit is telling you or leading you um, to do something different, because the signs are always there. It's just about us being aware, and understanding what's going on. But um, what he said, even down to what he put in the comments about um, finding the right teacher for you, I feel like specifically, um, it's crazy. It's not crazy, but it's like so ironic how a lot of times we're led down this path where the first teacher, sometimes not even a second teacher, sometimes not even a third teacher, is the right person, quote unquote, for you. But you go through those things to learn and experience and see certain things. And it's like you always tell us, there is something to learn there. There was something to know, even if that was what not to do. So, but even in that, we have to like remain hopeful, because the person for you will definitely come. Yeah. In divine
I,
timing though. But yes.
yeah, no, I think that's a Ty Solo is the brother's name too. He I think that yeah, Ty, I think that's a good important thing to say. Just like Tay, um, Ty and Tay, um, where when going into a situation and trying to figure out, you know, because sometimes we get pressured into things we now don't necessarily want to go down that road, right? And a teacher may be seeking to kind of do a general swipe for a lot of different folks. That's why I tend to like when I have students, I do it either individually or very small classes, right? Because it's easier for people to kind of grasp certain things. Well, some people may feel on the spot. You may not want to deal with a bunch of people at one time because you may feel on the spot, like, oh, why am I being singled out? But if it's a smaller, group session, then maybe you'll feel more comfortable. That's why even on these lives, I don't want people to tell their business. It was like, oh wait, that may be something for a divination. Let's not say that online. Why don't you come to DM me and we can go from there? Because I mean, again, you don't want to put people on spot like that, right? But at the same time, you want it to be thought provoking enough for that student to be able to grasp the concepts, um, to go home with something, and to be able to develop themselves in certain kind of ways, right? So when they come back, they've internalized it too, right? Because I like engagement. I like when people engage with me, so that we can have I can learn who they are. Now I've learned that through the divination that I did with them before we start studying, but at the same time, I want to know specifically what kinds of things are you into? What kind of things do you do? What kinds of things as you speak? What are you really passionate about when you speak about things? Because then that way I can kind of see, okay, well, this is where we're at. This is how you kind of flow when you're getting ideas, and when you get the idea, I can hear you got it because you get excited. And so those kind of things. And so the reason why I always think about it in that way is because I know that's how I work. And not everybody works the way that I work. Not everybody thinks the way that I think. Not everybody approaches the way that I approach it. Um, I just, for myself, I seek to go in, um, because I remember when I first started, I always would get frustrated, um, if we're not physically going into something, but I didn't know what to ask. So I refrained from like really going into a question because I was like, okay, I want to sound, like I just, I'm all over the place. I want to actually have a direct question, but I don't know how to ask this question. And I want to know that do I feel comfortable with this person enough to ask a question, because they feel like maybe they don't, they won't understand what I'm coming from, or why I'm coming from in this way. You said the same, Ty Solo?
Yeah, I like to make sure I know what I'm asking or like what I want to know specifically before I open my mouth, especially in a
Right.
group setting.
Right. But then, I like that people are coming up in this situation too, in this live, in a way that they feel comfortable enough to come up and ask, or to leave a comment, or to do whatever, because you want to feel comfortable with somebody, right? I think that's a good point, Ty Solo. Silent wisdom, since you up here too. What do you think about that when we speak about a teacher, finding a teacher, asking the right questions? What's your thoughts on that? I mean, silent. No.
No, I'm here. I went to the store. I wasn't really hearing, so can you like elaborate more? Like what you mean?
So at the beginning I was saying know when to say when, right? So know when to back away, know when to, um, some of the comments like, Tay was saying and Tysola was saying, was like how, uh, knowing the right situation, feeling comfortable, being able to maneuver in situations well, and being able to ask the right questions, and being able to engage properly, those kinds of things. Just when you're coming into a new situation, and knowing when to say, the situation may not be for me. This person may not be the right uh, fit for me. Maybe because of their personality, maybe the way that they handle themselves, or maybe the way they talk to other people. You know, what's your take on them?
I feel like for me personally, if I come across someone that I want to be a teacher, I feel like their morals and ethics have to align with mine, because I don't want to learn or study under someone who doesn't have what's the word, a certain ethics, because I know not everybody follow what they say in a sense. So to me, in my eyes, you're a hypocrite, and you can't really. I just don't like hypocrites. So that's big for me. You can't be trying to teach me one thing and then you're doing something else. And I feel like when you first meet a teacher, you're not going to necessarily really know. because I feel like nowadays people know enough to have people fooled, but you won't really know until you get around them and start noticing certain things and start asking certain questions. And once you start asking those questions, then it's like, okay, why this coming up? Now it's time for me to like look into this and, go from there.
No, that's good. I like that too, because um, that falls in line with what we were talking about with questions, because you may not feel comfortable enough to having ask. So I have a confession left out. What's the confession? That's a little.
I'm over here laughing because because I literally went through this. I've been like when I first got into E5, and I met my EI, who was an Ocean priestess, living in Houston, Texas. Um, we had we didn't really plan to meet. I just happened to be going to Houston for a wedding, and she was already my Facebook friend, so I let her know I was in town. So she came and scooped me up, and we went to a nightclub. So we were just hanging out, and she's like maybe 60 plus, so she's way older than me. But she likes to party and do all these other things. I really don't have a problem with that.
Right.
But she's a priestess. So the next day, um, we're at her house, and she invites some friends over, and we're talking EFI and just getting to know each other. Prior to this, she had already been my elbow. We already got that out the way. She had already consulted E5 for me. So I was pretty comfortable with her. Um, During my short time in Houston, we were in the car just discussing regular life things. And I was telling her about my children that I had on the way. And at the time, I wasn't sure if they were mine. So, I was awaiting DNA test results. So fast forward, I leave Houston, get back to Memphis, and I log into Facebook, and she's making this subliminal post about someone being a deadbeat father and things of that nature. And I knew it was about me because we had just had this conversation.
Right.
So to make that short, um, when to say when, like at that point, I was like, okay, well, if this lady is proclaiming herself to be upright, upstanding, and a teacher, she could have, contacted me about, whatever she's saying here and, talk to me directly instead of, being very immature, if I must say, about the situation. And on top of being an EI, you know, I can't be connecting myself with anyone like that. And it's funny that, we have this conversation because I've been thinking about that for a minute now. And I've actually been, praying and hoping I find a better replacement or someone that I can follow aside from her based off the situation. So, yeah, you have to be careful when you're connecting with people. You're divulging certain information to people and you're allowing people in your energy, especially with this type of practice, because, um, some people do take advantage of their power and they kind of like use it for the wrong reasons. Um,
Right.
it's unfortunate because I really did see something promising through that connection. But as Tay said, it may take one, two, maybe the third teacher when it comes
Mhm.
to securing somebody to follow and to lead you. And I'm not saying she's a bad person, but based off my experience with her, I don't know if it was um I don't know what space that came from when I realized what was happening. But since then I haven't been in contact with her. And
So I have a question, for you within that situation. Now, what was like? Um, did she approach you or did you approach her?
Um, she had
I'm
a
always curious.
initially she was it was like this, like how I found you basically just through Facebook, you know.
Okay.
Um, and I did get to meet her in person, which was one of my priorities. Um,
Okay.
but I didn't expect that response from her, when it came to me, opening up and seeking some sort of refuge. Um, but it was a valuable lesson for me because she's human, at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
she has her own personality. So whatever reason she felt justified in doing what she did, um, it doesn't have nothing to do with me, but it did teach me, you know, pretty much exactly what we're speaking about tonight.
Hmm.
Um, you have to be careful, because then you've divulged, you allowed access to certain things, and then when you realize that this person still has a personality that you have to deal with, maybe that's not the right person for you, um, in the
Now,
long
did
run.
did did you do a divination with her first before you started
Yes,
to
I did a
study? Oh,
divination with her.
uh-huh.
She read Ifa for me.
Good. Okay.
She has my Ebo done for me, and I'm big on principle. Like maybe my mistake was seeing her as refuge instead of keeping it Ifa, if that makes sense. Um,
How do you
but I could
mean?
take a because just to rewind, like when we were in the car and it was just like casual conversation, it wasn't nothing involving, the practice or
Right.
tradition. It was more so our personal lives. And that's what we do. We connect, we talk, we
Right.
conversate, and it gotta be the end of it. But for her to escalate it to a certain degree, really said a lot about her.
Right. Right.
Um, and like I say, maybe my mistake was divulging the information and expecting her to be upholding, but that wasn't the case. So with someone like that, principal, like I say, like if that's something that you would abuse, then why would I further my studies with you? That would be counterproductive, counterintuitive on my end to trust that she would be the right teacher for me if that type of information, being as sensitive as it was at the time, um, was abused in that way. So, I didn't want to be too long, but that kind of you know, it's like it's funny how spirit makes you say it like, you know, it's the perfect situation for me. And it was very eye-opening to say the least. So
Mhm.
going into the future, like I want my teachers to be well, I don't want my teachers to be anything other than themselves, but I want to connect with people that are, have a certain code. Like
Mhm.
if I were to come to a Babalawo and hey Bob, I'm not having a good day, you know, me and my brother had a fight and I would expect my Babalawo not to take that conversation further than between us. Um,
Right.
but in this case, it wasn't that. She took it further than just our ears and our mouth, and it just told me, just lay low, step back and learn how to connect. Learn how to discern who's worthy of leading you and who's, like just not your person. You know,
So, quick question: So how long before? And I'm asking this question. You don't have to answer any of them. I'm just, you know, if you choose to. Um, how long before or after doing the EPO did you begin study, or did you study, or how long after the EPO did you go? in a social situation with her,
Um,
if you
she
don't
had a
mind.
nah, you're fine. She had a like a WhatsApp group of IFA devotees that she was teaching to, which I was a
Okay.
part of,
Mhm.
and you know, she taught about a lot of a lot of things. It was very valuable information
Mhm.
from that group. She offered Ebo consultation and things of that nature. And I was new to the practice. Aside from just googling things and kind of putting two and two together. But
Mhm.
um, I think I went to Houston like maybe like 4 months prior to being a devotee.
Mhm.
Um, so not too long. It wasn't that extended. Um, but yeah, once I got to Houston and met her, it was cool. And again, I'm not judging her character. It's just that taught me a lot about you know who to trust and how to go about
Right.
choosing my teacher. And
Right.
you know, I'm pretty sure you understand.
No, I definitely understand, and I appreciate you for sharing that too, because
I
it
had to,
is.
because
Yeah.
Silent Wisdom just kind of opened it, like cracked the egg open. I'm like, okay, I gotta share this because this is the
Yeah.
perfect example
Yeah.
of what we're talking about right here.
Yeah. I mean, because again, I always look back at situations where I never really. I was around a lot of folks that did a lot of different things, but I never joined into it until I really came back to the states, and that's where I got exposed to, so-called randomly, right? When I was going to thank you when I went to I was teaching capoeira Angola, and then I ended up at this school, this preschool, which actually was also Ifa temple, right? So it's like um, you know how you see things when you're there, and only reason why that I connected with the temple after my daughter's born and everything else is because of the Lul that was there, because everything else seemed like it was kind of in disarray, right? And not that they weren't good people, it's just that things weren't, nobody was speaking Yoruba, nobody was really studying there, and so it kind of threw everything off. And I was that's what made me think about, I always think back at different times, and thinking that wow, this is not where I should be, because I'm not going to really get fed that like I really want to, right? That little voice inside, that your ori inu, right inside, thinking like something's just not quite clicking. But the allure of that temple did make it so. I was like, okay, well, I could see studying with him. I know he's only going to be here when he's here in the states, but at the same time, I could still see kind of building with him one way or the other, right? Um, and I know how my mind works, and that's why I asked that question. Is like, what do people think about the first things that they seek out in a teacher, right? That's the next question I'll ask uh, after I say this. But I know I didn't know what I really wanted in a teacher. I didn't, because I was mainly looking for. I know I want to learn, and I didn't actually come back into the states wanting to learn E5 specifically. I only got to that because it was like presented to me in a certain way, right? But if that didn't happen, I probably wouldn't have done it. Just because I just got back in this country from um from Burkina Faso at that time. I was just really trying to get established back in the Bay for the most part, you know. Um and so that's why I asked that question out loud, because I want to see how other people are thinking. When they think of a teacher, what's the first thing that they actually think of when they think of a teacher? Anybody can answer that. What's the first thing that you think of when you think of a teacher, a good teacher for you, right? That's the first part of the question. Go ahead, Kia.
Oh, I think of wisdom and experience because can't nobody tell me nothing if they haven't done it before. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Now done it before in the case of like what? What do you mean? Like done the things that they're speaking of, or done the things that what do you mean?
Yeah, like done the things they're speaking of. Like somebody can't teach me how to fix a carburetor if they never took apart a carburetor and put it back together. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Since you got, what else? What do you think about some of the other conversation that we've been having tonight? Have you? I don't know when you popped in, but
Well, I just came in when the brother Ty Solo was talking about his teacher and how he got mixed up in the game with that. But yeah, you just have to pick what lane you want to go down with that person. Because if you go down like a love lane, that just gets you mixed up and you're just on that one lane. So just imagine two roads with that person. So yeah, just got to
yeah,
lane and stay there.
but I've seen that too. I've seen people cross that line with people at the very beginning, and that's not kosher. Not when you're dealing with Ifa.
That's
Um,
what I was thinking as well when she wanted to go out, initially meeting me, wanted to go party and stuff like that. And I don't know, because I'm thinking this is the older woman, so she's mature enough to understand, like,
Oh, that's how we
where.
get.
my face, right?
So, you know, like she say, choosing a lane to go down, not having two lanes going at once. But I did learn my lesson as well.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful because, in I've seen it so many times too. In that way, of folks have come in and folks have manipulated that space. It's like you talked about earlier, Ty Solo. Um, so I try to be very transparent in a lot of ways because I don't I don't want to seem like I'm trying to get over because I know people get caught up in people DMing them in their DMs and doing all kind of stuff all the time, right? 50 million people coming at you talking about E5, talking about this or talking about that. So I try to back up from that a little bit. Hopefully I'm successful. Um, because again, I remember when I first started, I saw a lot of stuff that I probably even shouldn't saw. Nothing necessarily done to me, but I saw how other people operated, and I was like, "Whoa, that's kind of deep." Because this person doesn't even realize what's going on right now, and they're walking straight into this wall, and they don't even know, right? And so you try to aid and guide, help some people, but at the same time, you're like, okay, well, they're not trying to hear you because they're trying to get in the mix of whatever, right? And that's not kosher. That's where we go back to Okbon, Idajio, Iwakbale. Because wisdom, justice, and good character is very, very important because um, some when you first get into a system, you should never jump in the system because you like somebody. Because feelings will get hurt, right? You don't want to do it. Not and when I say like, I'm talking about that person you may be attracted to or whatever, right? Because sometimes that clouds a lot of other things that we do. Even though that may happen down the road, but right now, at the beginning, that shouldn't even be an option because you don't want that doorway to smudge out something else. Because when somebody, if you're getting into a system or thing or whatever the case may be, but specifically this tradition, and that's the opening door, that's not kosher because automatically, if that goes south, then were you really there for that, or were you there just because you wanted to? You actually wanted when you want to learn because I see that I saw a Nigerian their names will be unnamed, but that I saw Nigerian Babalawos come here, and it's not only there; it comes from a lot of different places. But I saw Nigerian Babalawos come here, and they manipulated a situation. And when they're manipulating a situation, they did not, in my opinion, handle it correctly. Because they knew people would be throwing themselves at, especially women, would be throwing themselves at them, right? Um, and you want to be careful because you want to be, you want to use wisdom, and you want to use good character. You want to use good judgment, um, because when it opens up the doorway to that at the very beginning, that will cloud everything else, and you got to be careful. And that's why that's why before any relationship or anything goes on, you have to ask Ifa first, always. All right, even if you're new. Okay, is this something that Ifa is sanctioning, or is it something just that I'm feeling? Because a feeling and something that is meant for you is two different things sometimes, right? And that's important. That's important to understand because um, when we get involved with a place and we're physically learning and we're open because once Ty Solo said that, I think Tay said that as well. That's silent wisdom. I think you brought that up in like, your comment as well. When you open yourself up to something because you're open, you want to learn. You want you're anxious to learn and to seek and to understand what's going on. But sometimes that's not always the case of what they're trying to do. Sometimes people are just seeking to just strictly get over. You know, that's why I thought about this live. When to say when, because it is your ori at the end of the day. It's your ori that dictates whether you learn with this person or not. Now, mind you, your ori brought you there, but it may have been just to learn one simple thing, or may have been just for initiation. You know, it doesn't always just mean that it was strictly um, for you to go the long distance with. And I think that's where it's really important to understand that because now you don't want to go into something and figure that um, somebody's going to try to manipulate you. You don't want to go in there feeling that. You want to go in thinking, okay, well, I can be open in this situation, and this person's going to be honest with me enough to where we can get in and we can study, we can maneuver, we can develop, we can go into it, and then further down the line, if that is what IFAS dictates to happen, then that opens up to be. Well, because um, everybody that has information is not necessarily the person that you need to get the information from. Um,
Bingo.
Go ahead, Ty.
I was saying bingo.
Oh yeah. Well, because that's just honesty, right? So that person may be a superstar, blah blah blah, superstar, whatever, right? But is that information meant to come from that person in a way that they're presenting it? So, oh, this person's a gatekeeper. They just don't want to give me information to do X, Y, and Z. And then at the same time, am I physically? And these are questions that I asked myself at one stage, one point. Thank you, also Kia, for that rose. I appreciate it. Is this something that is this something that I need specifically in my life right now? Am I ready to really study? Because not everybody's always ready to study. And I think that's important. Not everybody's really willing to get into a situation where they're amped enough to say, "This is what I want to accomplish." Not because of something that you may have come across, not because this is maybe something that you have uh, sparked your interest, but is this really what I want to study? Or is this something that just piques my interest for the moment? Because, on either side, you want to be able to say, okay, well, is this something that I need? Or is it something that I'm just waiting and wanting to see? I described too much ago. Oh yeah, waiting and willing to see what. Oh, somebody's trying to come up. What how I react to how I do and what I feel and what I do to them, what place do I would have in this place. Right? So you may go to an event. You may go to maybe even have a divination with a person. Because that's the first thing that I do. Um, Definitely did in the past is when I wanted to know specifically about a Babalawo or Yanifa or just a person that I want to study with in general, regardless, not even just Ifa. You know, if I want to study with them, I really got a chance to have a good conversation, and within that conversation, I can kind of tell whether or not this is probably somebody that I could build with. You know, as far as study wise. So Ifa wise, I've always with those teachers, I've always gotten a divination from them first, so I can see. Okay, well, how do they divine? Is it something that I can follow? Is it something that I can understand? Because generally, how they divine is going to tell me how they're going to actually speak to me on a consistent basis. Is it someone that I actually can follow what they're saying? And if not, are they willing to hear my questions? You know, that's an important one right there. Are they willing to hear my questions? Not necessarily just listen to my questions. Are they really willing to take it in and okay, well, let me think about that. Let me go into it like this. You know, um, and so the topic today is when to say when. Also on the reverse side, right? When is it time to say like, okay, you know what? Okay, we've had 10 different conversations, and it only seems like you want to take, right? Those kind of situations are different because then, from my perspective, it's like I'm kind of kosher, you know, because the person always taking and not giving, then that's the problem too. I'm not talking about monetary wise or something like that. I'm talking about like they're trying to get something for nothing, that kind of thing, right? Um, but when it's like a mutual kind you're building and it's good conversation and things are flowing, that's different. I'm not talking about it in that perspective. I mean, in a way that wait a minute, I'm having a conversation with this person. Every time we have this conversation, they're like seriously trying to um, maneuver is the best word I can think of right now. And that can go on both ways. You can kind of see when somebody's trying to maneuver you into one way or the other, or take you out of your comfort zone and play with your emotions and do X, Y, and Z. That's what you don't want. You don't want somebody to play with your emotions. You want somebody to be straightforward with you. Well, I do. That's just the way I learned. Be straightforward. Be direct and clear what it is that you know. Okay, cool. That's actually cool. I can understand. I can respect that how you were talking, and it's a really mutual conversation. You know, it's not one sided. You know, it's a flow. Yeah, that's why I always say it's good to open up that doorway. And so if that person is dealing with Ifa, is the first thing out their mouth when they speak of Ifa is how intelligent they are, right? Um, for me, that's a big turnoff in a lot of ways. And if I have come off that way to people, please excuse me because I'm not trying to do that, right? My I, because when someone is speaking about their accolades more than building or having a conversation with you, is that really something that you could stand over the course of time? If the first 5 minutes of a conversation they're going and going and going and going and going about their accolades, and it is not really a building session at all, is that something that you can withstand? That you'll be able to work through? Um, so clarity of information. If I'm with a person for 6 or 8 months, a year, what have I actually learned in that time? Is it something that I've grasped in that time? Because it could just be me. It could be that I didn't fully take it in and study it, internalize it. So I have to think about those things as well. Am I internalizing what I'm hearing, or am I just hearing them and not really listening to the content, and then making it adjust it into my life, and really when I come back to this person really have questions about the things that we discussed the last time we there was a study session, right? um and that's important because a teacher will know when a student doesn't study. They may not say nothing, especially if you go to Nigerian. They're like, okay, mm. You're like, okay, what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say something? He's silent. What's going on? What's this mean? Da, 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 right? But as a whole, when we think about that, if you're studying with someone and they're really excited about teaching you, how are you receiving that? Will determine how much you actually learn from them, how much they're willing to give. Has this person studied what I've given them? Has this person opened up the doorway and actually aided uh, in doing things other than this? Are they really amped to really get into it, and they really looked at it in different ways and have really pungent questions? Are they really thinking about this in a way outside of just, okay, I'm gonna go off camera and act like I've studied and I'm gonna just read off of what you gave me? Because if you haven't internalized it, that's a problem, right? Because you're not really gaining it. Like for at a certain point, for me, I don't want to just take people's money. If you doesn't seem like you're physically grasping a point, then let's figure out why. Yeah, this cheating yourself, exactly. You want to elaborate on that, Silent Wisdom? What's up?
Yeah, I feel like it's cheating yourself when you pretend you know the information because it's really for you. It's not for me. Well, not me, but like me as in the teacher. It's not for me. It's for you. So now you're wasting your money and you don't learn nothing, honestly. But from what I realized, most people they don't want to learn. They just want the title for certain things too. But again, you still need certain information. So no, you cheat yourself out of that. And when certain things come up, no, you have to backtrack.
Right, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Because that's why I want to ask you to elaborate on that, because you said, and that's cheating yourself, because it is cheating yourself. Because are you there to acquire a lot of information? Because people do that too, for a book. They acquire a lot of information and smash it into a book, and then they run off, right? Which is a waste of time, really, because you really didn't grasp the point. If that's the only thing that you're there to do, is to gather a bunch of facts so that you can spread it out to somebody else. Somebody did that to me. And it wasn't that they were studying with me at that time. They were coming to me. This is a few years ago. They were coming to me and asked me for, and again, they weren't studying with me, uh, wanting to buy some obi abata at the time from me. Um, Asked me about Abigba, and I said, "Oh well, it's a very potent thing. It's nothing to play with. This is very intense. And so the more you get into it, the more that you understand it. It's not something that's really learned in the diaspora." So I said that plus a few other things, right? So he went to my cousin, not knowing that that was my cousin, and said the same word for word what I said, acting like he was an authority on Abigba. And I was like, wow, that's deep. So this person don't even really know that I know this person. That's deep. You know, Maybe they thought that they were going to take them away or do something, whatever. And people have free will. You can do it as you wish. Whether you're here and you feel like you need to go somewhere else. My Luz always says that, if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be. It is true. Um, because I think when that happened, it was really interesting because it opened up the doorway to, okay, you you're trying to get over. He was saying stuff like, "Oh, you can initiate people with cola nut." Like, what? What are you talking about? Right? And so there's a lot of things where I didn't know this person from Adam. I didn't know him from nowhere, right? It just they were coming up and they were saying certain random things and they were trying to glean information, and that's where understanding that point where who are you and what are you seeking to do in this situation and why, right? From a teacher's perspective and from a learner's perspective, a student's perspective. Why are you there? Just so that you can have some catchphrases so you can be shiesty with other people, right? And I don't mind people talking about comedic things and things like that, right? I don't necessarily study those things like that. I study Ifa. I'm a Babalawo, right? But when you're trying to misinterpret something as something else, that's one of the tenets of Ifa. Don't say that this herb is this and when it's really that. Because you don't want to do that. You want to be able to be honest as possible. So let the person make a choice. So now, with the advent of people being hungry and wanting to eat and do this and do that, but all money, like back in the days, old folks say, all money ain't good money. And really, if it's just about the money, then that's going to be a problem in the end anyway. I think you can appreciate it because it's important. If you're in a place and that place is not really feeding you, that's the ultimate thing. When to say when is when you're in a place and that place is not feeding you. But first, before you go, you have to make sure. Okay, am I impatient? Am I just not seeing this correctly? And maybe they're teaching, they're building me up to a place to where I can get a certain amount of information, and then I can go forward, right? Because that's also very true too, right? Um, or it's something that I need to really learn at this particular time. I need to learn patience, maybe, and then other things can come forward, right? Um, and that's important too, because am I patient enough to grasp the thing that's there for me? Because if I'm not, then it doesn't matter who, what, when, or where is coming because you may miss it. Anybody want to chime in on that?
I think it's true. You have to pick the right person to get your lessons from. That's all I want to say. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and then what are those lessons you really want to know? Yeah, that's true. It's very true. Um, yeah, so I thought that was a potent thing to start the live with specifically because it's always a problem, and I know for me, and I always take it back to myself just because that's like that's a way that I um because I know my experiences have been this or my experiences have been that. And then I always try to um associate those experiences with others so that they may things that also a question that they may have had while engaging or disengaging with someone. Right. So I remember one point I had to step away from a situation um and I didn't know where to step because that's the only thing that I knew at that particular time, right? As far as teacher wise. That being the case, I didn't know where to go and who to go. What other, what avenue do I go to and blah 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 blah, right? But in a certain way, if you can trust yourself enough to say, you know what, I don't I don't feel comfortable in this situation. This situation is really not for me. I'm not growing, or it seems like every time I open my mouth, it's just I'm being browbeated or something. Is the price, we talked about before, is the price too high to pay? And I'm not talking about money. Is the price too high to pay? Is there something in this situation that I think I can gain, that I can tolerate this enough to gain that information, before I go? Because it is based off of your ori. You have to be true to your ori. If your ori is taking you in a place that you don't need to be, then generally it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem because you have to really be able to ask yourself. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Really be able to ask yourself. They renewed. Okay, thank you, Content Wisdom, woman. I appreciate you coming through. But is that something that you really want to awaken for yourself? Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Well, it's not morning here. It's only 11, almost 11 o'clock at night. But I know everybody is either a few hours ahead, a few hours behind. um, so that's why. So the topic today is like, subscribe, share, follow. But the topic, that's not the topic. The topic is when to say when. When is a good time to step away? When is a good time to really reassess the place that you are in, with the teacher, with the place, or with the learning style? What is it that in this space is either feeding you or um, putting you in a place that you don't feel comfortable? So why do I say it like that? Because it's important. It's important to figure out and wonder why. This is what I was explaining. When is it the time where you say, okay, I think I've learned or gained what I need to learn, even though there are a lot of things that I could learn in this situation. But is it a situation where I need to be in to learn these things from them, right? Because not everybody's going to be there with you. Your personality may clash. Things may go in this way, but are you willing to go through that to gain the things that you need? Because there's certain times where I went through that just to gain what I needed to gain, because the information was greater than their personality, right? Or something was there that I saw that I needed to gain from this situation. You know what I mean? Because that's important. It's important. It's important to make good, clear decisions. Because if you can't make a clear decision on what you want, then a lot of times you get caught up. And being caught up is the worst kind of feeling, because you're like, I don't want to be here. What am I gaining in this situation? Am I able to really develop in this situation the way that I feel that I could grow? Or am I just here? That's an irritating feeling, because you want to be in a situation like this, but you don't know where else to go if you want to leave here, you know? Um, and so that's another side of it. What do people think about that? Anybody can pop up. What I was just saying. Anybody? Be Ferris Bueller. Anyone? Anyone? I was taking way back. Maybe dating myself when I say that. It's important to know when the lessons are run dry. Yeah, in a lot of ways. When the lessons run dry, or then when the person is not really feeding you properly, because they may be going over a lesson, but it may not be that time. You may not be gaining from that lesson in that way, because sometimes you got to go through something over and over again to kind of reestablish it. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Dinah B, how are you? You want to chime in on this question?
Hi, Baba. I
How are you?
past the end of it. I didn't hear the full question.
So just the topic today is when to say when. So when is a good time sometimes to figure out, okay, this place that I'm here and I'm studying may be Ifa, or maybe, something else. In this case, we're talking about Ifa. Uh, when when is a good time to kind of walk away or back away? Or what kinds of things that are you physically looking for when you're looking for a teacher? Dinah B.
I think the first part of it was knowing when to back away. I suppose is really trusting your gut, trusting your intuition when it comes to that, And even before that is knowing what it is that you're actually looking for and what you want to do when it comes to your spiritual path. And I think once you have those two down, you can make the best decision when it comes to whether to back away or continue on. And I think actually sort of praying and meditating on what it is that you need to do and who you need to choose as far as your spiritual teacher, and what direction you should go.
What do you think? I asked this question earlier, Dinah B. What do you think the best things to look for when you first look for a teacher? When you're looking, saying, okay, this person, these are the criteria that I really want, or these are the things that I won't stand for. What kinds of things? What kind of things you think the best balancing point would be?
I think first and foremost, I think you kind of have to be on the same page with what it is that you want to do spiritually and how you want to grow. And there's a level of commitment that you want to look for in a teacher because you're trusting them with your spiritual path and your spiritual life in a sense. And so you have to be comfortable with them and they need to be comfortable with you. It has to be a relationship where you understand who they are, they understand who you are. And the teacher has a role and the student has a role as well. But I think that, when you choose someone, you have to feel like you can trust them with, in all essence, kind of like there's a trusting with your life because this is your spiritual life in that sense. I think that that's something that you really have to look for. And knowing that that teacher has your best interest when it comes to your spiritual growth and your spiritual development. And they also, as the teacher, needs to feel like this person is going to be able to follow and do what it is that's required for them to have that type of development.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Anybody else want to chime in what Dinah B was saying? Chime in what Dinah B was saying.
Yeah, I think what Dinah
Chime
B
in what
was
Dinah B.
saying.
Uh-oh. Hello. Oh, something cut off. Kia. Anybody else? I don't know if Kia's having some technical difficulties.
Is this better now?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yes. Like when I'm looking for a teacher, I'm looking for like how he talks to people. Like if we're like out at the park and like he's talking to kids, if he's like, "Hey kids, get out of here," or "Hi, how are you guys doing?" Just how he interacts with people. And like when we're together, if he looks me in the eye when we're talking, and when I shake their hand, if their hands are cold or if he gives me a good grip, it's a whole bunch of cues I look for. But I'm
Why the
weirdo.
good grip? Why the good grip? I'm curious. Kia, why the good grip?
If they're strong, like if they're weak and watery, they're just gonna be like, "Oh, hi." You know what I mean? You have to have a strong grip because you're gonna hold on to me and hold on to what you're saying. So that's how I interpret it.
It's like a metaphor before the metaphor.
Yes.
I like that. Anybody else? Tay, you want to chime in on that? Speak on that? Tay, nope. Still with me? Nope. Okie dokie. So yeah, I think that's important though. I think that's really important. Oh, she's sleeping. How about you, Silent Wisdom? You wanna come in and talk about we just this came up.
I don't really have anything to add. I feel like I'd be repeating myself. But I can say it's not really, depending on who you are, it's not really easy to walk away from certain teachers because I feel like for me personally, like I have this loyalty thing, so it's kind of like it do get hard for me, like somebody have to really show me or stuff have to really go left sometimes for me to like, all right, yeah, let me just walk away. Because I give people chances after chances.
No, it's true, and I think that's we talked about that before too. It's like I'm same way as that when I give maybe too many chances to some ruta. Got a whole bunch of root. Into that next, um, but it's true because I think you're trying to give them the benefit of the doubt as you would want them to give you the benefit of the doubt. Um, and then within that same way, when is a good time to say, okay, well, let me talk to the person. Maybe I'm just kind of thinking out loud in my brain and not really putting the pieces together. So let me talk to the person. And then when you talk to the person is like, okay, so now you just reaffirmed affirm. You know, yeah, I'm gonna probably have to get out of here. And I've done that in many a situation where I've been in a temple, and that's why I really stopped doing that whole thing in the grander scheme. Uh, been in there and just sitting, listening to the person and hearing more than what they're saying is like, oh, okay, this may not be the place for me. And early on in a space, be like, yeah, nah, I'm not. That doesn't really resonate with me. That's making me kind of uncomfortable, and it's kind of I see you kind of just using one to play out the other and the other one to play out the other. That would be the number one telltale sign for me. If I'm not learning, if it's like um, you're trying to keep everybody happy so that they continue just to pay you, um, because you can tell that too. You can tell that too. Is there something going on specifically with me in a conversation wise where I'm not being heard? And not necessarily being heard because I have to be the number one in the mix. It's more so like, is my opinion valued to a degree where even though I may have just started this space, is it important for the person to really hear me? Are they really listening to what I'm saying? Or is it just um, one going in one ear, coming out the other? And I'm just hearing you because I have to hear you because we're here. Um, and I think that's important. I think that's really important because the more we begin to ask those questions of ourselves, we actually probably will start making better choices in our teachers, right? Because like Dinah B, to your point, that when someone is really you have a good understanding of what you want and how you want it, and then you pursue that, you start to look for it. Oh yeah, no, that's not gonna work. I can see that person may not be the one because see how things are going on. That's what Kia was talking about earlier. How are they dealing with the children? How are they dealing with things around you? How are they dealing with things, people, places, spaces? What are they talking about really when they're talking to you? Is it strictly has to be strictly about one thing and one thing only? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just strictly basic conversation. And so on that note, does anybody have any questions? Pertinent questions for me specifically. And what it um, yeah, any questions? I'll leave it open like that. Does anybody have any questions particularly for me?
I have one question.
Hi, Solo.
So, Yeah. So when it comes to E5, does it consume your entire day, or do you do other things outside of E5?
Yeah. So there are, I run, my herbal business and everything else too. So always making sure that I have, like right now, taxes. So I'm just trying to get those things together, right? So there's always going to be multiple things because it's all on me. I don't have anybody really to say, okay, this is what this da 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 da. There are students that I have that have aided me in a lot of different things, but primarily it's all on my shoulders. So I am kind of a man of many hats, right?
Okay.
As is my Lua, which I try to help him in a lot of ways,
Okay.
to open that doorway and help him in a lot of situations because I know that he's kind of in that same way, same boat. Um, but for the most part, yeah, when I have clients, back to back clients, or when I have certain things going on, yeah, it's pretty much I'm rolling through that, or I'm talking to people in the course of that day. I'm checking in on people because I like to do that because I like when my Lua does that for me. I check in on people. You okay? You good? How you feeling? You all right? Especially if they've just recently got a reading or a divination. I like to make sure that they're feeling okay. That there's nothing that they're not. They have a question, but they may not know how to ask it. So I engage them by calling them and saying, well, did you understand everything that went on in that reading, or did you have any questions about what's going on with that study, or whatever, vice versa, right? So I'm always kind of thinking about different ways of engaging with students, then also with my own development because I study every day. So even if it's just like 5-10 minutes in one space or 20 minutes in another case may be, whatever case may be, going in deeper. So I'm always studying at the same time because this is what I do full time. I don't have another job, another thing. So I'm dealing with E5 and I'm dealing with clients with E5. I'm dealing with herbal clients, things like that. So it's consistently. It's my way of life. Exactly. It's my way of life.
Okay.
Yep. Any other questions, Dr. Solo? That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I asked that question because when we're seeking teachers, sometimes we can romanticize them in a certain light, and then we don't get to know the person,
Right.
you know. So it's good to know that you do other things, so then that way I have more to relate to when it comes to learning from you and just connecting with you on a basic level.
Yeah, like we talked about family, right? We talk about family. We talk about um, all kind of
Art,
stuff, right?
kids, things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And then also, I'm an artist. Went
Right,
to school for art. You know what I mean? And amongst of other things. So it's like that. I think that's a good point too, Ty Solo. That people generally put teachers on a pedestal and think they don't have life and they're not human, and they are.
right. And it's a
You know.
certain level of responsibility I know that comes with being a Babalawo. So I understand that too. Like, don't think that I don't get that. I do. I really do. But I think common mistake people do is put, teachers on a pedestal and say, okay, well, that's an Enifa, that's a Babalawo. They're above being human. But in retrospect, no, they aren't. They actually have lives outside of Ifa that
Yeah.
you may not know about. And if you are surprised, you know, then that's your fault. you know,
Well, because in a way, because you didn't really fully investigate and want to really know.
exactly.
You know what I mean? You just want to take, 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 and that's only one sided thing. Oh, what else do you
Right,
do, Bob? What other things do you get into? What kind of things did you get into? There, you feel all right? Blah 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 blah
right.
blah. Because
Like I saw you bowling with your daughter. That was cool.
uh,
I saw you going bowling with your daughter on
oh
your
yeah,
own.
that's
like
my
that's
roadie. We
that's
go all over.
that's fun to see. It's refreshing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because it is a responsibility being a Bible hour. It is, and you know. it's always refreshing to um see a teacher with such a high esteem in a relatable light, and it gives you more comfortability learning from them, you know,
Mm.
because we're taught to personalize even down to politicians and celebrities and people with titles. Um, and then when we
Yeah,
realize that they're human
yeah,
and we understand, different
yeah.
quirks about them, then we look at them different, So, it's just I'm just asking to, kind of like get to know you as
Yeah.
who you are instead of just saying, okay, well, I don't expect much from you because you're teaching me, if that makes sense.
I appreciate that too. I appreciate that because it is a double pathway, because it is on student too to ask certain questions. You know, to really, are you really interested in that, or you just want to come in and write a book? You know what I mean? Some people would like that though. you know, you know, and so
Right.
it's
And if you say no, I'm not interested, I really just want to write this book and get it out. You can respect that.
yeah, I
But
can respect it,
right, but
but
some people
I may not be the person.
exactly. It brings me
Real.
back to, and this is not E5, but it's a different sector of spirituality. There was this guy who had like a group of people. He moved to Costa Rica and they were following him, and he was
Hmm.
teaching about like nature and stuff. And as time went on, they started to realize um how tyrannical he was and how egotistical he was, and you know he started to peel back the layers of his humanity, and it kind of like thwarted everyone, after following him for so long. But it's kind of their fault because they personalized him, as a teacher and didn't get to know who he was behind his teachings. And, I think Silent Wisdom might have understood. His name was Nature Boy, but I just didn't want to, give
Hmm.
any names or whatever. But it's just a good example of how people seek out to learn, and then, they glamorize what the tradition may be instead of, allowing themselves to get to know who they're learning from, and, allow themselves to get comfortable with, whether or not this is the space that they're supposed to be in retrospect. So yeah, that's really one of the reasons why I asked that question. Just I think it's important, just to see your teacher as, you know, not far like from you, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, somebody you can it's relatable. Somebody you can actually have a conversation with. Like me and my little, oh man. This is the first teacher I've ever had that's been this close to me. Right? That's been an hour and a half away from me. Generally all my teachers have been only in Nigeria. Right? So this is big for me. Right? Over the last 8 years, 9 years of dealing with Bigba. Um and that was that like about 7 8 years. That was big for me because being able to um, connect in that way was really important. You know what I mean? We go fishing. He's from Ekiti State in Nigeria. So we go fishing. We go. We talk. What's on? Well, are you doing okay? How's your daughter? Da 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 da. Everything okay with such and such? Such and such all right with you? 'Cause that's why I do it with clients and students, because it's important to have that relationship outside the relationship of, because that person is not only that, but they are that, right? But then they have other aspects of their personality as well. And so I think that was really cool in a lot of ways, because um, I never really had a chance to do that with other teachers because they've been so far away from me, right? So when I'm getting on the phone for Pacific time, and then that's it. It's not like I can call every other second because I got to get phone calls just when I first started, or I got to get this, or I got to get that. You know what I mean? Thank you. Say no less. Um, and so I think that's important to really realize too. Do I want that personal interaction, or is it just strictly study? you got to be honest with yourself. So,
Right.
does anybody else have any questions? I really want to try and engage with people a little bit more about anything. You can ask questions about pretty much anything.
I have a question.
Uh huh.
So I
Trying to
was,
be.
yes, I was wondering, do you have like a process in actually taking on a student that is interested in learning from you? Um, you know, do you divine on that, or how do you go about actually taking on students who are interested in studying under you?
That's a good question. So, I touched on a little bit earlier. I don't think you were on in, but so basically, what happens is that a person has to have an E5 divination, E5 Big by divination specifically, because that's the tool that I use first before they begin to study with me. So they do the divination, and they do the ebo. So if the person doesn't complete an ebo, automatically that's a sorry, because you're not really seeking to complete what you open, right? And second, I have to kind of know what's going on with that person, right? And then they get insights on what it is that's going on with them at that particular time too, right? So, for example, with my Abikba teacher, and I was already initiated to E5 for like 10 years at the time that I connected to him, right? So it was a little different, but I still want to know who he was. He wanted to know who I was. So I got it. My first thing is always to get a divination from a teacher, right? So that's now as I'm teaching and divining and things like that um, with Habigba. I always want to do a divination first with the person. What's the level of commitment of study, right? Um, are they going to complete the ebo that they open up, that read that divination with? They open up the divination, they got the information, they learned the taboos, they learned all the stuff, and so just because and I always want to say this too, that when somebody gets a divination doesn't mean that you got to be initiated tomorrow, or I'm gonna try to throw all these elekes on you tomorrow. That doesn't work. Not for me. Not from the lineages that I come from, right? Um, because that divination says everything that you need to know specifically about what's going on right now, and then maybe something that part of your what you need to the path you may need to follow, right? And then it also may go into other aspects of what's going on, but then it tells me specifically not only who you are, because it lays it out for me directly, and then it also says your level of, like I said earlier, the level of commitment. What it is that you are you really willing to study? Because that's my big thing, right? Because I've been in situations where um, the temple that I was there in, nobody studied but me. And I was irritating. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you, Kia. And that's the main thing for me is, are you really willing to study? Are you really willing to complete what you open up? Internalize what you gained. Did that answer your question, Donna B?
Yes, I got it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, you said there's different levels of study. What are the different levels? Because I know you teach IFA and like herbs. Are there different levels within each class?
Yeah, right. Because for example, with Ifa, after after we finish the divination in Ebo, and that 2 week process is depending on what comes up in the Odu. That 2 week process, we go through, that process is done, and because that's the first 2 weeks is really intense after divination and ebo, so that's why at the minimum it's a week and a half, 2 weeks that we can begin study, right? Depending on what comes up in the Odu, and then what kind of ebo that needs to be done, and on and on and on. All depends on what comes up in the Odu. So you make because like for me, my little in Abigba, I had to wait for 4 or 5 months before could begin study because there's a lot of other things that if I needed to work out so that things are really opened up so that I could study, right? But that's not for everybody. That's why I say roughly about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Um, but when we first start, it starts basic. Even if somebody's already studied and done certain things, I always start with Obiabata divination. Why? Because Obiabata divination is extremely important, right? That's the foundation of most of the things that you'll be able to communicate with your Ori Inu, right? Your inner self, your path, your fate, your destiny, your soul, um, or with any other, whether it be Orisha, or whether it be your ancestors, or whether it be whatever, right? Obiabata divination is the backbone to a lot of those things. And plus, the way that I teach it, you begin to learn Odu out of those five signatures, right? Because it's Odus that are relatable to those five signatures of Obiabata divination, right? And so I always start there first, no matter how deep or how whatever, because this is a good um, balancing point for when you first start to get a good understanding of certain things, right? And then once we go through that, then there's other levels. Like again, we go through some of the language, some of the while we pay homage. What's the purpose of going through and connecting to your Ori? Um, well, why we pay homage and then Ori? Because why do I do it in that order? Because again, what people call Isheshe, that's where I start. Are Odu stories. Yeah, Odus are the bearers of stories. Because it's the verses inside the Odus that create the information that's coming up. Specifically for that person that when they come. So in Abigba, instead of one Odu, there's four Odus that come up. And then there's just the underlying Odu. So it could be 28 Odus or 24 or 16 or 18 Odus, depending on how much that the first four Odu kind of dictate to where, for me, where it goes into deeper because Ifa is speaking, right? So if Ifa is saying this is, you know, we just stay at the four Odus, then we just stay at the four. And then that's clear enough and you get all the information you need. But generally it goes deeper. It goes into these other levels of Odu. All in the first row with Abigba. Because Abigba is a standalone. It needs nothing else. So once you throw it once, everything is there. EB, Ray, all the good stuff is all in one throw. Yeah. So kid, did I answer your question?
Yes, you answered. Okay, thank you.
Uh, Anybody else have any questions or anything like that they want to ask? This is the time to ask it. Do, 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 do. Oh, I'm playful.
For these 2 weeks, when we're just starting out, do we have to be live and in person, or can we be over the internet?
No, no, no. You don't have to be here to do the divination. You mean, or the study?
The definition.
No, no, you don't. Not with that big, but not with any E5 really. Because all you, for far as how I was taught. Because I started with Opwele and Ikini Fa. When I first got initiated. But oh wow, this is January, almost February. It'd be almost 17, 18 years. That's a trip. Anyway, I just thought about that.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Huh?
How old are you, if you don't mind me
I am
asking?
47. I'm going to be 48 very soon.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday.
Not yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Coming
Oh.
up. Coming up on it. Uh, but yeah. So that is. Somebody was asking me a question. Oh, thank you. Say no less. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you for the support.
For sure, my people just pulled up. I was just waiting on the rest of my family. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, definitely.
I'll check in with you later.
Now we'll talk. We'll
All right,
definitely talk.
for sure.
Appreciate you. Double.
I'll double.
Um, double. So that's when I deal with clients and when I deal with people, I like to really make sure that I have a um good conversation. Good. Even before I do when I do a divination for somebody, Kia, I you don't have to be. That's what we got. Well, you don't have to be present. All I need is your first name, your birth name, your mother's first name, and her last maiden name. Right? Why do I need your mother's information? People always ask me that. Why do I need that? Why do you need that? Well, because first and foremost, Because when that's the womb that you came out of, that is the place that your ori was formed, right? So that's why I say this is primarily. Oh, I don't know if that was 0 followers. That doesn't make any sense. Um, yeah, so I want to make sure that that's you, Kia, from Omo or child of this mother, because you came out of her womb. So that's why out of that womb, this is the person that I'm divining for. Right. So as long as I have that information, you sent me the funds for the donation for the divination in general, and then I go for it. Then I do the divination. So if you're in front of me, that's one thing. But if you're not in front of me, which you don't have to be, especially with IB, but it's all information is laid out regardless, just by those things. And then by those things, then we start to go in and go deeper in Ifa specifically. And because I will never say that I say that it's my opinion that's given this blah blah blah, because that's not what this is about. It's not about my opinion at all, right? This is signature comes up, the signatures come up, the 4 Odus come up, and this is what I'm relaying to you. Ba, 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 ba. This is what's going on in such and such Odu. Ifa says this. Ifa says that. Ifa says this. Ifa says that. Right? That's specifically where that's coming from. Why do I say it like that? Because it's very important to understand that. Because if the diviner in the first few minutes of a divination, in any part of the divination really, saying, it's my opinion, I think Ifa says this. Ifa is the one who opens up the doorway. Ifa is the one who connects to your Ori Inu, right? So that's important also to realize. Ifa is the one that's delving into your Ori. So it's not something in somebody else. It's your Ori that they're delving into, that Ifa is delving into. When Ifa is delving in and saying, look, this is what's going on, this is what's in balance, this is what's out of balance, this is what needs to be put forth in balance, this is what needs to be expanded on so that you can gain X, Y, and Z blessings, whatever that comes up in the Odu, right? And I say it like that because it's specifically Ifa. Because once I throw it, it's Ifa that says, boom, this is the Odu that needs to come up for Kia at such and such a time, at this particular time. Because you could have chose 50 million Babalaos, but you chose that Babalao that you choose, and that Babalao taps into Ifa on your behalf. You see what I'm saying? So you don't have to be present. No. For the reading, for the divination or the Ebo, you don't have to be present. Depending on what it is. Even so, for example, somebody's far, far away, outside of the country, or on the other side of the states, on the other side of the continent, or somewhere else, right? You can still divine for that person. Yeah. Or that person may be local that just cannot make it at all. You can still divine for that person. Yeah, definitely. Any other questions?
I had another question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an order to being initiated in different spiritual practices, or is that something that would show up in a divination? So like if you're like maybe being initiated in Ifa before you're initiated in like Palo or some other spiritual practice.
So, not to interrupt you, Dinah. So that's Palo is not a traditional thing. So I would never take somebody through Palo, right? That's more of a diasporan form of things, right? So when you get a traditional divination, it depends on what lineage and what angle and whatever. But Ifa is Ifa, right? You open up that Babalao on your behalf opens up Ifa on your behalf. Information comes up and it tells you specifically, okay, bet this, and so this would be good for you to go to, and to enhance X, Y, and Z, right? And when you do that, primarily, it doesn't mean tomorrow you need to be initiated. It does not. It's And truthfully, it wouldn't be a good idea to do that if you could do it. It's always good to study first to get the fundamentals. What is it? And so, when people generally say Isheshe, again, I say this often, but most people don't understand what that actually means. Isheshe specifically means mother or your maternal ancestors and your mother, right? Who represents them. Your father, his paternal ancestors, and him who represents them, right? Your own Ori Inu and the path that Ori Inu takes on earth, right? That is destined to live on earth. That is Isheshe. So I generally start there. And that I don't care what tradition you deal with, there's always that. Right? So before we even get to any of those things, like I said, we start with Obiabata divination so that you have a good understanding. That feels good to hear. I don't know why I feel pressure to consult Ifa as if I'm doing something wrong. Right? So, you know what I'm saying? So why, if you understand how to throw Obiabata divination, right? Then you know how to propitiate your own Ori. On general principle, you know how to do that. Once you learn how to do the basics of that, and we can go deeper if you feel the need to, right? But once you have a good general understanding of how to throw kola nut or four-lobe kola, which is Obiabata divination, you don't have to be initiated at all for that. Then you can go forward to learning about, some of the language and why we pay homage and da 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 da, right? And then going into Ori, which is the first thing that we're talking about. The maternal, paternal, or paternal, maternal, doesn't matter which way you're talking, your own Ori. So we start with Ori, have a good understanding how to take care of your own head. Ori is your own head. But Ori Inu, and there's different aspects of Ori. And that's other things that we'll be learning in that specific class. Ori Inu is your inner head, or your fate, your soul, your destiny, right? And so that in itself will give you a good understanding, first and foremost, if you don't go any past that alone, how to take care of your Ori, how to connect to your Egungun or Egun, your ancestors, right? Paternal, maternal, right? That's if you don't go past those things, that is more than enough for you to kind of do what you need to do, right? Some people don't want to go past that. But it's a good idea to get that foundation first before you go anywhere else. Because if you don't have that, then it's easy to, get lost in the sauce, as they say, because everything starts to build up and what's your Orisha? What's this and what's that? Blah, 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 blah. That's meaningless if you don't know how to take care of your own Ori. Because that's your main Orisha, is your own Ori Inu. Right? That's meaningless if you don't know how to take care of how to throw kola nut, because kola nut is the bare bones of everything else, how you communicate with your Ori. Right? And your ancestors. And it's certain ashe that kola nut has to why you use kola nut instead of anything else, right? So that's really that basis. And to also go into the other side of it, what I was saying earlier was Dinah B was so I would never take you to Palo. Why? A, I'm not initiated into that, and B, that's more of a diasporan form of system, right? So I wouldn't, my Lua wouldn't, and nobody in my lineage would, because that's not part of what we do. And with Abigba, you don't need to, believe me. That's more than enough. You go to Ifa, or you learn Abigba, that's more than enough. More than enough, to say the least. And then there are, like you said, there's many other mysteries. So if they say even that, okay, Oshun may be the one, everybody wants to be initiated to Oshun, right? But that's a different kind of mystery too, right? Or Kabiasi, Shango, or whatever the case may be, right? Those things specifically don't come until after you finish training, and so you don't have to be initiated to Orisha first before you go into anything else. You don't. And all the things I just talked about is not being initiated into anything yet. You're just learning. You're just studying, right? And then after we get through Egun and you have a good understanding how to feed them the basic foods, how to communicate them, maybe a verse or two, same thing with Ori. Um, then we'll go through like um, Hand of Ifa. And why do I do that too? Because then you have a good understanding, kind of a what what's going on. Depending on what comes up in the Odu, really, all of that comes up in that first and foremost. What comes in the Odu? What's based in that Odu? Where does that actually even play into any role that needs to be dealt with? Right? Why is that important? So that's really where I began. Did I answer your question, Dana B?
Absolutely. It actually kind of, in a weird way, it kind of takes some pressure off, because it's, sometimes when you're learning about different practices, you kind of see the end goal, but you don't see the time and the things that lead up to it. And it's good to see that there is a cushion for learning and understanding. And I think throughout that process, you become more comfortable if you choose to be initiated. Not only because you have the time, but you'll have enough information and knowledge under your belt to actually make that decision to go to the next step. And I'm really grateful that you're explaining it that way, because it gives you something to work with when you're actually entering into the practice, or you enter into being initiated. And that's something that I didn't get before with listening to other babalawos or teachers talking about, um, Ifa in that way. So thank you for that.
Oh, no worries. Thank you for answering that question too, because that's a really pertinent question. Because when you that question is important, because again, these were the things that I had questions. Didn't know how to ask those questions before though, right? When I first began, even before I got initiated, way before I got initiated, I didn't know how to ask these questions. I didn't know what to ask, right? That's why I really started to live in general. It's like, look, whether you study with me or you study with somebody else, but know what questions to really ask and know what really to kind of see and know when to say when. You know what? This ain't it. I'm good. I don't think I like this guy. Look the way he talk. Look the way he's going on, or whatever the case may be, right? But you start to assess things like you would anything else, and that's really where it comes down to being is really being able to assess what it is that you want to know, right? And how is it that you're going to actually be able to have the conversation, in a respectful way, which is important. Which is important, you know, because when that happens, then it's easier for you to kind of go through that process, right? Because it's easy to kind of say, "Oh well, I'm just gonna let them kind of take the reins." Nah, what's the most two important places that we let our guards down the most that we probably shouldn't at the beginning is travel, and there's probably many more than that, but travel because relax, we're on vacation, right? And spirituality. And I think it's really important to really look at it that way. Um, why would you want to rush into being initiated to anything if you don't have a really basic backbone of what it is that you're even getting into? Why would you want to study until you, okay, well, I got the divination, the information came up, and I did the ebo, but I don't think this is really for me, you know, because I'm hearing information and I don't want to do it. I don't want to get involved in anything past here because people come for divinations all the time, and they're not coming for being initiated. They're coming for information about things that their Ori cannot figure out, or when things are out of sync. They say that you always go to your own Ori wisdom first before you go to Ifa, right? So when you go to Ifa and you're asking these questions, or you're getting into these certain things, you want to make sure that you're asking the right questions or that you're getting the right things that you want to acquire. So that's why even before, like I give a 13-point breakdown of what to expect with a E5 Big by divination. Now, why do I do that instead of just saying, okay, come, let's do a divination? Because, wait a minute, there's an Ebo. You didn't say anything about an Ebo. You're trying to get over. Nope. It's all there. Pop, 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 pop. 13 points of breaking it down to what you think. Because, again, this is things I wish somebody had did for me when I first started. Now, traditionally, obviously, that's not going to happen, right? If you go to a Babalawo, it's just not, they're not going to give you a breakdown like that. They're not. But why do I do it here? Because I want to make sure A, is transparent, and B, you want to make sure that you understand what it is that you are getting into. If you've never encountered this before in your life, you want to make sure you understand, right? So it's not just a mystery, not just somebody trying to, oh, see, they're trying to smooth talk me, trying to fast talk me. Nope. You know, from the very beginning, this is what's going on. From the very beginning, you know exactly what's happening. From the very beginning. Huh? You have a good question. You said, Dai Solo.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question surrounding the EBO. So, if a person comes to you for a consultation and then the EBO is required and they go through with the EBO, but then they decide, okay, I don't want to do this anymore, is there a consequence involved with that? Because, EBO is essentially, which it could be anything, but let's say there's an animal that needs to go up. If the animal does go up, are you responsible to keep feeding that Orisha?
So let me understand your question. You're asking me once a person's done the consultation to divination, um, and it comes to the ebo. Have they finished? You're asking if they already finished the ebo, or are they? What is your question? I'm trying to make sure.
Like once they open up E5 and then they go through with the sacrifice, are they responsible to keep feeding the Orisha after the
It all
Ebo?
depends on it all depends on what comes up in the odu,
Okay,
right? Because the odu specifically is going to tell you, like for example, sometimes you may have to do things once a month for something, right? It all depends on what the odu says, right? So
okay,
again,
I
it's not.
understand.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Because so again, it's not based off of the Babalawo or Ianifa that's divining for you, or it could be a Orisha person or a Lokun or a Gungun priest, right? Because a Gungun is not an Orisha, nor is a Lokun.
So it depends on the maybe the severity of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Right. And it depends on what it is. It may not be super complex, right? It could just be something really, really simple. It could
right.
be really simple, right? So that's why I say,
It's like
understand. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, no, go ahead.
Like let's say you do Ebo and it comes up that you know Ogun wants a dog and he wants the dog every other month. So now
Hmm.
you have to adhere to that and you have to be responsible for providing that. But if you don't, is there like a consequence?
So if we say, for example, if there's again, let me understand your question correctly. So if there's an ebo that you have to give to Ogun a certain kind of food, right?
Right.
Um, then that certain kind of food that you give, um, it again all depends on the Odu. But then outside of that, once that's been propitiated for you in that doing the ebo process, now it's suggested to you to do this on a regular basis because that's probably what's protecting you, probably what's whatever that comes up in that Odu that talks about that predominantly, right? They made me say that okay, you may need to go down that road and connect with Ogun, right? For initiation, whatever. But ultimately, after you've done the reading in that bowl, you don't necessarily have to do it after that. But if I said, look, this is what you it suggests. If I says that this and this and this should be done on a regular basis so that you create harmony in your life. So that these things are taken care of. Outside of now that you've done this ebo and you're taking care of it for this time, right? There may be something that comes up in Odu says it would be good for you to do this on a regular basis. Or it'd be good for you to have E5 so that you, at least a hand of E5 so that you can kind of deal with X, Y, and Z. So now, mind you, uh, the only hand that you would get would be from Ikini Fa. But with Abigba, there is no hand of Abigba. Abigba is a standalone. It's just strictly Abigba. So you would go through a full study all the way up through E5 and X, Y, and Z, and then be initiated, and then you would, receive that Abigba and then ceremony for Abigba. So that's different. But it's in a Abigba and Ikini Fa, within my lineage, you receive both of those in the Igbo do. Because it comes from the same Igbo do. It's both Ifa. You
Okay,
understand what I mean?
understood. So it's very
Okay.
specific for each person and each reading.
Yeah. Very
Okay,
specific. Yeah.
okay.
Very specific. Yeah. And that's important to understand because just like we have our own Ori Inu, right? Our destiny is different. My destiny is different from yours because our Ori has a specific thing that is come here to deal with and connect to specifically, right? So automatically it would be different. Even if we came in the same, I say this all the time. When I was in a grove, there was somebody that had the same Odu as I did. But because he's all the way across the world and I'm here, it's always going to be something different because there's infinite verses to each of these verses, each of these Odu. Right? So he's going to have a certain thing that comes up specifically for him and the things that he needs to adhere to. That's because that's his main Odu. Just like it's my main Odu. So we may be similar because it's the Odu. But then there's infinite verses, so there may be things that apply to him that don't apply to me. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
And you only get your Odu in the grove, whether it be of Ifa or any other of the other societies or mysteries within a
So the
tradition.
Odu doesn't change.
No, once you get that Odu in the grove, that's your Odu. That's your life story. That's who
Oh,
you are.
okay.
Right? So you get a hand of Ifa, that's not your life Odu. And actually, you don't even traditionally. Now I know there are people who do it, but ultimately, though, there is no Odu. You don't get an Odu when you get a hand of E5. You don't get a name when you get a hand of E5 because you're just that allows you to train, right? Um, and then when you go forward and when you go through the Igbo do, go through the process of Itefa, see me Itefa, that is your Odu for life. That's who you are. That's the difference. A lot of people when they get a hand, they're like, "Oh, that's I'm initiated to Ifa." No, you're not. No, you're not at all. So, any other questions? Feel free. Anybody?
Does the
Anybody?
Odu come from a Ifa reading?
Yep. Only.
Okay.
Well, so if somebody's reading Erdin Logun, right? Somebody does a Erdin Logun divination for someone. Maybe they for Orishanla, maybe for Lokun, maybe for I'm just giving examples of different Orisha and stuff like that, right? Um, when an Odu comes up, because that's the distinction, because those tools give Odu, right? Ifa tools like Abigba, Eba, um, Ikinifa, Opwele, um, within Ifa, that they give Odu, Eridin Logun, Ejo, um, those things give Odu. Because they give Odu, there's a process. Anytime there's Odu that comes up in a full divination, there's Ebo. I don't care what it is. I don't care who you're talking to. There's always Ebo. Always. Always. And that's important to understand. Very important to understand. You said you have another question?
Oh no.
Oh,
I think that's
oh,
it.
that was earlier. Okay. Um, anybody else have a question? Tay, do you have a question? Tay, you sleep, huh? I think she is. Silent Wisdom, you got a question? You still with me?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. I'm listening though. No questions right now, but Ty asked some good questions.
Yeah, he does. He actually Ty Solo definitely asked some really good questions. Yep, yep, yep. Um, and so that's why I did this live too. Is like when to say when, because it's important to have a good clarity of when it's time to go, and when is it time to really make an assessment of what it is that you want to understand. What question to really ask, why to ask those questions. But when somebody's doing something that you don't like and you address it and they don't deal with it, and there's no other way to connect to it one way or the other, never feel like you have to betray your own ori. And I think that's important. Never betray your own ori, inu. Because if you don't feel like you should be there, then you shouldn't be there. Because it's ori that guides you. 100%. Because it is your destiny that you're living. Thank you. Thank you very much. Uh-huh. Thank you. Diana B. Thank you. I kept saying your name wrong. My bad. Diana. Is it Diana or Dinah? That's not Dinah, huh? I'm mispronouncing it. My bad.
It's Diana.
It is Diana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. I like to say people's names correctly. Do you have any more questions, Diana?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for the roses too. I appreciate it. Yep. Uh, yep. Oh, I thought you were gonna ask. Yeah. So it's important. It's important to really look at those things in that direction because there is a time to ask questions and time not to, but it's always good to take notes when you're hearing somebody speak on something or do something because you want to ask questions and you want to be able to ask questions to where it's going to be satisfactory to what you want to hear, what you want to really know. So really think about those questions. Even when you go into before you do a divination, asking a question that um, primarily has to do with how you want things to go, or what questions that you have specifically about a situation, or something that you saw and you want to bring up to attention. It's not always, sometimes you don't always ask that in front of other people. Sometimes you ask that in private, right? Um, but it's always good to ask questions, right? It's always highly important to ask questions. they they always say, "Oh, boy, someone you ask too many questions." Mm-mm. Nope, it's never too many questions because I want to know. Because if it's not for me to know right now, then that's fine. You know, then I can let me ask another question that may have something relevant to that, right? Because there is no silly questions. There's just only disrespectful questions. So you don't want to be disrespectful in the way that you ask a question. You want to be humble, obviously, but you also want to be able to ask the question in a way that is clearly what you really want to know, and not a leading question or a question that is misleading in a lot of ways because you maybe want to. So that's what generally happens in a group setting. People ask questions because they want to. They kind of want to see what people are feeling or saying, so they can kind of play off of that, right? But the most important thing is for you to gain clarity. So a question is the most important thing. I want to know what this is. Oh, okay. I maybe let's talk about this in a DM. Let's do such and such, right? And if that comes up, okay, cool. Then let's talk about it then, because that may not be something that is for everybody to know. It may just be specifically for you. Okay, well, let's do this because I don't want to put your business out there like that. Maybe so we can go. You can DM me and we can talk there, or we can talk in person, meaning on the phone or whatever, right? So that you can get a clarity in that way. So why do I do it that way? Because I really want to make sure that this is a place that people feel easy enough to ask questions, right? Some questions that you may not want to ask in front of the public, but gauge it first and thinking, what is it that I want to know? Is this a place for me to ask it? Is this something that I can gain clarity about in it? This question, and then how am I asking it? Am I asking it in a roundabout way? Am I asking it in a very direct way? Right? You can definitely ask me direct questions. I'm not afraid to answer any questions. The only thing that I will not answer is the things like, you know, I got a divination. I got an Odu from somebody, and once I got this Odu from somebody, I want you to tell me about it. Nope, I'm not going to do that. Why? Because that in itself is disrespectful, not only to me, and seeking to gain information from me that you've gotten from another Babalawo or Yanifa or whatever, right? Um, the same difference is you don't ask somebody what their Odu is. That's disrespectful, right? Um, unless it comes up in a certain kind of way, right? But you don't ever ask a Babalawo or Yanifa or whoever what their Odu is. That's personal, right? Yeah, I read that also. What do you mean, Solo?
No, I read where someone said the same thing, never to ask someone about what the Odu is.
Right, right. And so that's disrespectful, as you can probably understand, right? Because again, that's my path. Those are things that I do, and it's at a certain point that would be okay. When you first meet someone, that's not the question that you ask at all. Same way as okay, give me information about this old dude. Wait, what? No. Is that an old dude that you've studied with someone? Is that an old dude that you've gotten a reading and that's the old dude that came up? That's something completely different, and that's disrespectful. You know. Um, but beyond those things, for the most part, unless somebody's coming at it very disrespectfully, trying to convert me to something, I'm really not going. I'm gonna be like, that's not gonna happen either. But other than that, any questions are more than welcome because I want you to um, feel free to ask questions. That's the best way to know. Like they say, a closed mouth never gets fed. Right? What can't be answered on live will be answered on live. Will be brought forth will be brought forth. You know, um, and that's important to realize because once you really start to seek it out and see it and know it, okay, well, then maybe it is. You know, this is the time to ask such and such a question in this way. So that's why I go back to that thing when I do a divination for somebody when I record it for them because I do record the divination for you, right? And so if you are far away, even if you're in front of me, I still record it because I want you to have a record of it. I want you to be able to go back and listen to it, and then so that you can have specific questions because you will. There's a lot of information, and you won't be able to fully write everything down. These are facts, right? Because it just works that way. A lot of information comes up, and it's not going to be everything that you're going to remember. Because I want you to make sure that you understand what the taboos are. I want you to make sure that you understand what came up and the information that you need to um, understand and know on a consistent basis. That so that when it comes up, oh, this is what If I said when if I said this is what I need to adhere to because I don't want to. What are taboo? Go ahead, ask. Come on, live. Silent wisdom. What you saying?
I was just asking what are taboos.
Taboos are the things that come up in this instance in a divination that maybe say, for example, uh, don't eat peanuts or stay away from certain people or certain things, right? Or make sure you don't eat these certain kinds of foods like we're saying peanuts and or whatever. Make sure that you watch your temper or you watch your the words that you speak or there's a bunch of different things that speak about taboos, right? Different kinds of things that you may and may not. Thank you. I appreciate that, Dinah B, for coming in. Thank you. Thank you for that subscription. Um, so that's important. That's highly, 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 highly important, right? Um, because those taboos are telling you now, mind you, you have your own ori. I can do whatever I want to do. Okay, you may, but not adhering to that taboo may hinder your path. Will hinder your path. Not might. It will hinder your path. But you have a choice to do it or not to do it. Like for example, they say if I says, okay, don't go in the backyard for X amount of time, and then you do it anyway, right? So if that's the case, then you go back there and then a snake bites you. Ah, well, okay. There you go. You chose to do it anyway, but there you go. So those are things that are restricted, like restrictions at that point for a specific time. So Ty Solo, go ahead, say what you're saying. You said you were told not to eat that fish.
Yeah, after my first reading in Igbo, I was told one of my taboos was not to eat catfish.
Okay. It's interesting you bring that up because if somebody has to feed your ori, catfish or eja in general, eja just means fish, right? Um, then there's ways to do it, right? To feed you without feeding your Pacific head, for you to eat it. You may be allergic to fish, right? Or shellfish or whatever. Um, because of that,
I'm
then
laughing because it hurt my heart. I'm
I
from
know,
South
right?
Louisiana and we love seafood.
Love to catfish. That's right. But so we may have to feed it to the seed of ori or yeah, to seed of ori and eshu. We may feed it to there than and otherwise. So there's always ways around that. So if it says that you need to feed your ori this, then if that's the case, then just need to put it in here too. You know what I'm saying? Oh no, I can't. Like this, there was somebody that I can't eat fish because if I do that, I'll swell up just swell up my throat. It's allergies, whatever, right? Then okay, no, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that because I would always ask that anyway if it came up in a divination says oh we have to feed your head ori your ori catfish or some kind of fish. I wouldn't feed it directly to you. I'd feed it to see the ori.
So with a head feeding, I've seen parts of it, like when the person sits in a chair and the Babalawo or the Ayanifa is, well, here, this leads to my next question. Are they quite literally putting food on their head?
Yeah, they're feeding it. They're feeding it.
Okay.
They're feeding your ori. So there's ways to do it. There's yeah. So as a direct question answer, yes.
So that would be like catfish on my head.
Hmm. And so if you can't do that though, there's other ways to do it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So if that person doesn't know how to do that, then that's one thing, right? But there are ways for you to feed your ori without putting it directly on your head. Like
Okay.
for example, you're all the way in Louisiana, right? And so obviously I couldn't feed your head in general because unless you came out here or I was out there. But so even if you're not near me, I can still feed your ori, correct?
Okay.
In the same way.
Okay.
Yeah. And you'll feel it. Believe me, you'll feel it. You'll feel it. So that's
I've
this
never
is
had
good.
a head feeding. I wonder
Mm.
how do you approach getting a head feeding? Is it prescribed? Is it like part of Ebo?
Yeah, it would be a part of it. Ebo. Oh, and
Okay.
sometimes you just need uh you need your head cleared or washed or cleaned or and fed. Sometimes that comes up as well. In general, Baba, I need to such going like, well, maybe let's calm and cool your head, wash your head and then feed it, you know, and we'll do that. Depending, sometimes we go directly to that. Sometimes we go through the divination itself that says that you need it.
Okay.
Hmm. Oh, thank you, thank you. Yep. Um, Yeah. So if any questions? Any other questions?
I have one. Is
Hmm.
there another part to Alabigba? Kind of like I don't know how to say it. So like a level one, then like a level two. Like, is there like another part to it?
What do you mean, like the Abigba? So Alabigba, when you say Alabigba is the diviner who used the tool of Abigba. And so Abigba is the actual tool. So there's only one tool of Abigba. Is that what you're asking? I just want to be clear.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't know how to word it. Cause like I know you said like the hand that Ifa is different, right? So you know like that's just one hand as opposed to like a full blown initiation, right? So like with the
Oh,
tool, is there like what you get what I'm saying?
I do, because with the hand to be fi is coming from Ikini fa, right? And so I think this is what you're asking. So there is no hand of Abigba. There's just Abigba, right? Because it's standalone. It doesn't need anything else, right? Well, so with the hand, you get a certain amount of Ikin and you know certain things, right? But with the there's no hand of Abigba at all. Is that what you're asking? Silent wisdom.
Kinda.
Okay. He said kind of.
Like when I figure out how to word it, like I'll ask.
Well, I mean, so are you asking, are there two parts to our Big Bar, or is it, or deeper level of our Big Bar training, or is that what you're
More
asking
like
specifically?
a deeper level.
Mhm. So yeah, there's so much to learn in our Big Bar, believe me. So there's you start to learn, and then you go through the ceremony to be able to see to go through and other things, so you won't have a headache while you're learning. Um, and then there's the full on ceremony for when you are able to go through. So if you haven't got initiated to be fire yet, then that would be something different. You know, it'd be different. But Abigba is Abigba. Literally, it comes from the Igbo do. So once if you were to get initiated to Ifa and you didn't get Abigba at that point, like with my lineage, with my Lul through my Lul, is you receive both at the same time.
Okay.
So
Um,
that's dope. Go ahead.
that makes sense. So where did a big ball originate from?
Oh, it's in the continent. What do you mean from like a Pacific place?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a story that goes along with Abiba, which I gave once before, um, but it came when Orumila gave it to his first student, uh, Ojumu. He gave it to his first student, Ojumu, and so it was those things we'll go into later, but it's this is from Orumila's first student, Ojumu. He gave it to him, and that was the first Alabigba. Because Orumila, he had to understand, never used the divining tool ever. Right? Go ahead. Question?
Oh, that was gonna be my next question. Is there a story about it? Okay.
Hmm. Yeah. And so basically, what the story was is that so, um, and again, there's many different levels to this story. So I'm giving you the basic version.
Okay.
So Orumila came down to Iliaye, right? And as he was traveling and teaching and things like that, right? First place he came across was this big body of water, massive body of water, and he couldn't cross it. It was too deep, right? And so he started to pray to Olodumare and said, Olodumare, you sent me on my mission, come here to teach, do this, to do that. How am I supposed to do this if I can't get across this big body of water, massive body of water? Um, then he prayed, he prayed, he prayed, and then Olodumare sent him a gourd. This they call Obi, not Obi, but Obi, right? that gourd came down the massive body of water, and when it came down, it stopped and went over to Orumila, right? And he said, "Get in." And Orumila was like, "I can't fit in this little gourd." Blah 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 blah. Right? Get in. And so it got in, and then he got in, and it expanded, and it took him across, not down, but across the great body, the massive body of water, right, to the other side where there was land. Um, and so when he went across, he got out, and just as he was about to leave, he was like, if I don't have you with me, how will I get back? And so he said an incantation, and then he brought the gourd to him and broke it into 16 pieces. When he broke it into 16 pieces, he put it into his satchel. Right? We kept his opine and everything else in. And then he left. He started to walk. And he walked for a long time. And then when he finally came across somebody, he came across Ojumu. And when he came across Ojumu gave, he said, I don't recognize you. Are you from here, from this area? I don't think I've ever seen you. And he's like, no, I'm not from this area. He said, do you have a place to stay? Ojumu did. Do you have a place to stay? Are you hungry? Why don't you come with me back to my house? I can help you, give you something to eat. And then he gave him a place to stay. And then, as time went on, he was like, uh, do you need a place to stay? Do you need a place to kind of stay for a while and X, Y, and Z? And Arumla, accepted, right? So after a while, though, Arumla was looking around and was like, wait a minute. Ojumu doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have children. He doesn't have, um, he's giving me food and providing for me stuff that he doesn't even have for himself. How is he doing this? He's showing this massive amount of good character. He doesn't even know me, right? And so once he went through this, he says, "Yeah, you know, I get by. Things are going. I'm not, everything is good. I just, I seek to maintain. I seek to stay focused on what I do, right?" And so when Arumala was about to leave, Arumala was like, "Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna gift him this gourd that I broke up into 16 pieces." Right? So he gave it to him, and then he said, I'm about to leave. I'm about to go back on my journey again and go back to things that I had to accomplish and teaching." And so he gives it to him and instructs him. But again, Rumila never divined with any divining tool. Okay? So he gives it to him, and then he takes it and says, okay, 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 okay. So what, so he goes and just before Aruma leaves, he kind of makes sure that he has a good understanding of what's going on, and then he does it, and then his life begins to prosper. He gets a wife, he has children, he has things that start flowing for him in his life, things start going. So Aruma said, "Okay, now I'm satisfied. I'm on my way on this journey. I'm glad that things have began to get better for you in your life." So he goes away for a time, and he comes back. When he comes back in that specific area, he said, "I want to check up on my friend. He was really good to me. I want to make sure he's still doing good." So he come back, and he goes and he sees Ojumu, but he can't find him. He's like, "Where's Ojumu?" He keeps asking around. Everybody didn't know where he was. And then Ojumu finally came up and he said, "Baba, whoo, that thing that you gave me, way overwhelming, way too overwhelming. I had to put it down. I just couldn't, I couldn't deal with that anymore. Right? It was too much." So then Arumala went and got the seeds of the Igiakba, the tree that kills negativity. Gave these seeds to him and instructed him on another level of what it is that he had to learn. So when he gave that to him, he said, so are you're feeling comfortable with this?" So he feels comfortable, but again, things start to flourish for him. He starts to go back into this in learning. He starts to get a better understanding. He starts to flow. People coming from all over the place to connect to him. And then he goes. I'm sorry, I'm looking at this. Then he goes to um, these. He comes back. He wants to go check up on his friend again. He's like, I want to make sure he's still good. I don't want his life to end up in that way again, right? So as he goes in, his one of his students go in and sees him. How he says is like he's with his wife, right? One of Aruma's wives. And so it's like, his students get so mad and rips up his clothes. Right? How dare you? But he's really talking about Abigba. Because Abigba, he's done so well with Abigba. He's really mastered it. He's gone to a higher level of what it is and how it functions, right? And so when they left, he used the ripped clothes first to wear around his neck and then to bind each of the four lines of Odu. For Odu. Four lines of Odu. Right? When he did that, it became even more potent. And then that's when you see a Bigba when he's thrown, you see those four lines of Odu. And so it become really potent. He became even more potent than others who sought to do these things. So now, mind you, Abigba's older than Ikinifa. Ikinifa came when Orunmila left. So that's a different thing, a different story. So you have to understand that in itself when you hear and see and deal with Abigba, because Abigba is a very potent tool. It's a standalone. Opwele is not a standalone. People often mistake it for Opwele because it is not Opwele. Different seeds, different everything. It is definitely not Opwele. It's not only in Nigeria, in Ekiti, in Lagos, and Ibadan, and all the Awori people use it as well as the Igbo people, but they call it Ibia Afa. It's the same thing as Abigba or Iha Wega with the Edo people. It's the same too. Different nuances, but the same in a lot of ways. You see five. See five too. And so those things are important to understand in itself. That tool is very powerful. So unlike people may have experienced Erjin Logun, or which is 16 calories, right? Or they may have experienced Ejo, the 8 calories. They may have experienced um, Opwele, but Opwele is not a standalone. Uh, you can't make that bow on Opwele. Whereas with Ikinifi you can, and with Abigba you can, because Abigba is a standalone, needs literally nothing else. Go ahead, Ty Solo.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is Abigba the four chains with the four faces?
The ones that I showed before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Obalufon. That is Abigba. You still read it in that form of Abigba, but Obalufon was a that's brass. Um, so the four lines you're talking about that you saw when I did it, yeah, that's Obalufon, and that is the speaking of when he that's the longest lived king in Ileife, and then also the one who brought metallurgy and things like that, and smithing, right?
Okay.
Um, but that's why that instead of so usually you would have it in gold, but it's not gold. But I'm not walking around with 24 karat gold, right? Uh, I have it in brass. That's the brass one that you saw.
Okay.
Um, yeah, but
And
you read it as an Abigba. It's the same process.
so Orunmila used Abigba to cross the water,
Arumila used a gourd. He was in the
and
gourd.
okay, and the gourd broke into 16 pieces,
Hmm.
which became
Huh?
the 16 pieces was after the gourd broke into 16 pieces, it became Abigba.
Yeah, he taught Ojumu, his first student, how to use it.
Okay.
because again, he never used a tool. And so when you think of Orumila, Ileri King, the witness to all faiths, that is Orumila.
Okay.
Hmm.
Him
And
him
so he never
crossing the
used,
water. I'm sorry.
huh? Go ahead.
Him crossing the water, is that a no do in itself?
That's a whole different other mysteries. We don't go into any of those things in this kind of form.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Let me get up there. Closet. Thank you. Uh, so
I'm glad you
that
said that because
huh?
I'm glad you said that because that means I'm asking the right questions.
Yeah, no, you're right, you're right. But I mean, as you learn Abigba, then you begin to learn different mystery. That's why I said I'm gonna go through the very surface level of that story, and then there's a deeper level of that story. So any Odu actually, there's the verses that are if a person just randomly heard it, they see the surface things of that. Then the person that's the Babalawo, that person that's studying, goes deeper into what that Odu is actually saying, right? There's different levels of Odu, different levels of verses and things like that. So that's just one of those things, and it is potent. It will, yeah, it's a lot of information. A big buzz, it's a lot. So a person that deals with Abigba can go and see somebody pressing Ikini Fa or throwing a puddle, and there is no slight on that because obviously there are masters that use those tools, right? Um, but Abigba and Al Abigba can see them divining and see more into those that than they can see into Abigba because they don't know it unless they've gone through that training.
Okay, understood.
So again, it's not to slide on any of those things, but just that's like one of the original tools. Yeah, because there's more information that you'll get out of Abigba reading than will otherwise because there's other things that are seen that are there. And plus, also with Abigba, there's the four primary. So instead of one Odu, there's four Odu, and then there's all these other levels of Odu that's around it in the one throw. There's so much information that comes up in one throw. So difference also is that there's no Igbo. There's Ebo always, but there's no Igbo. Igbo are those implements. Have in your hand, put in your back, hold it while they're divining. That's not there with Abigba because it's all there. Open door, closed door, Abiku or Sek or the Ibi or Ire, same thing.
So Ebo and Ebo are two different words?
Ebo is different than Ebo. Ebo are
Ah,
the implements. Ebo is the offering
okay.
or the yeah, Ebo the offering sacrifice. So, and that's important to understand because again, these things are completely different than what most people will that they don't know. And so in an aspect, most people don't know it. They just don't know it. This is not a regular thing. So it doesn't know Pele. No. Opele can't. You can't have Ebo on Opele. You can't put it on the Opele. And it's a completely different tool. Completely. Then there's Eba, which is 8 lines of Odu. Then you 16. So because it's a binary system, it is infinite in scope. There's no ending. Any questions? That answer your question, Silent Wisdom? I know I went overboard a little bit.
You know it did. Thank you.
I did go overboard. No, I'm just playing. Nah. So what did you understand it though? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I feel like the question I'm asking initially, that's kind of like you say, you can't really speak on that, but based off of what you said, you did really like answer it on a surface level. Um, yeah, but the story, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I was gonna say the story makes sense, even though like it's surface level. But I get what you're saying, and it did answer my question.
okay. Because it is many levels of learning Abigba, put it like that, right? Like how I divine now is different how I started divining when I first divined with Abigba. It's different because there's multiple Odus. There always were four Odu, but there's multiple levels of Odu that I see now, that I deal with now, instead of just the four. That's where it differs, dramatically differs, because there's so much more information that's there. And there's different ways to really read it, and that goes into deeper study too. But the way that I'm talking about is definitely a different level of it. Yeah. So it's good to know. It's good to have a good understanding of what it is that you're seeking to connect to when it comes to these things, right? Because I don't know what that is. It's good to know. It's good to have a good understanding of what it is that you're dealing with and why. And that's why I actually do that. God is really this we're talking about specifically when to say when. Right? When is it time for you to leave a teacher or leave a space? When is it time for you to actually get a good understanding of what is it that you need to do and why? You know, because it's important. It's important to have a good understanding and not just do it randomly. What's the purpose of it? Yeah, because it's really good to have a great understanding of why you're going into these things and what's the purpose of you doing these things for. Like so, um, when you get to Eba, that 8 lines of Odu, it's a lot of Odu. You think a big buck can, multiple angles of Odu. I'll be honest, for primary Odu, but Eba it goes, keeps going. It's like multiple. You ever see that those chessboards where it's like they're stacked up? That's what that is. 'Cause, even on one chessboard, you have these multiple squares within squares within squares. You have multiple angles, right? And that's really how our big bot really is, like that, but all in one throw, not in multiple throws, all in one throw.
So do you have to throw different for the different time span? Because I know you said like 6 days, 16, and then like 16 years. That's what you said.
Oh, what he five? Big bot. So it's 16 days, 16 months, 16 years. No, it's all in one throw. Oh, you talking about Eba, where it's 16 lines of
No,
Odu.
you was right the first time. That's what I was talking about. Yeah, I was
Okay.
asking if you have to throw differently for like the different time span, but you say all come out one time for the.
Yeah, it all comes up in one throw. That's what makes it potent because again, it's all encompassing. It's a standalone. Needs absolutely nothing else. Nothing. You can open up anything on it, and then literally, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with that big bug because it's accurate. That's why it doesn't like to waste time. It just gets straight to the point. What do you need? What's going on? What kind of things is happening for it specifically, and you can kind of move on from there. It's important. That's important to think about those things because once you begin to see it and develop it and open it up, when you start to learn it, it's a different conversation as a whole. It's just like there's just no. It takes over. Like I said, I was before I came to Abigba Mysteries, Ifa Abigba, I was throwing Opwele, divining with Opwele, divining with Ikini Fa. But Abigba just takes over. Just takes over. It's the easiest way to say it. It just takes over. Because Alagbigba, and that's the so Babalawo Alagbigba, which I am. We just learn differently. It's the best way to put it. We just learn differently. Again, it's no slight on any of those things. It's just we learn differently. Questions in the comments or in the um, those that are up. Any questions? Definitely like, subscribe, share. Thank you for all those that subscribe today as well. I appreciate you. But like, subscribe, share, and thank you for all those that have been sharing. I appreciate that too. Um, Follow. Come up if you want to come up. Again, we're only allowing people who are. Oh, thank you for liking. God is Riri. Only allowing people to comment that are subscribers. Soon, it would be only those who are um, subscribers that will be able to see the first part. I'll do a different live for subscribers than I will do for those that are not subscribers. And in the next few months, and when I start really doing those classes like that, it will go up, but not by much. Not by much. Not by much. Um, yeah. I'm just trying to figure out how to communicate to everyone it is. I may go in and just try to do it that way. Send out a thing to all subscribers first, and then I can get started with that. So it could be a little bit more folks that can come directly to those. And maybe I can just the videos too. When I set the videos out, it'll go strictly to subscribers. That's what I'm getting to. I'm just kind of learning it and getting into that. So little by little, bit by bit. That's how we feed Okete. That's how we eat Okete. Okay. Vibration. Stakes is high. Yeah, I see why. Yep. Ty Solo, got any more questions? Dinah B. Tay. Or Silent Wisdom. Who else was up here? They left. Anybody got any questions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for following. Yep. I appreciate you. Definitely like, subscribe, follow, and share. All those that are here. And stay asleep. Silent Wisdom. Huh? Yeah, oh, she is. Okay. All right, I'm gonna take it down then. Fell asleep on me. Am I that boring that you fall asleep on me?
No, I don't think it's that.
I'm
Yeah.
just being funny. Just being funny. So you any questions, Silent Wisdom? Anything that you wanna
No, not right now. But very informative and good questions.
Yeah, I think it has been, definitely. I think so. Yeah. Um so those who have further questions about divinations or anything like that, please feel free to DM me. Um and definitely follow when you DM me because then I can respond. If you don't, I can't respond. Uh, so those things are primarily what I want to kind of go through. I want to go through too this herb. So I found it's ruta is the name of it, right? And ruta or ru is a very potent herb for a lot of different things. I went to Chinatown and there's this woman who always has she's not like necessarily in a store. She's just on the side. She's like, I got herbs for you. You hook me up. But it's a very good herb, very good potent herb. Fresh, extremely fresh. I just got it from too. Um, Digestive issue, just medicinally wise, it's good for digestion. It's good for gallbladder, specifically for deworming. Um, parasites, things like that. Also, really good for if you have certain kinds of parasites. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. And so this is the stuff that I'll be going through specifically in the um, certain kind of preparing and going through herbs, dealing with herbs from different perspectives, and the processing of those herbs. Because I am a 10th generation herbalist, also a Babalawo Alagbigba. So then, as a Babalawo, I deal with herbs in general, but then also within, um, I am an herbalist. My grandmother's the one who taught me, and then the family, and on and on and on and on. Going back, way back. But that's really what I seek to do specifically is connect with folks with herbs. But rue is a really powerful herb. Not only for you saw me put it behind my ear and everything else. Uh, it's good to grow around you, but it's also good to have with you in general, um, because it does not only repel people and negative things, negative uh, uh, entities, specifically how you use it as well. Tassola, you had a question?
Yeah, I saw you put that behind your ear earlier, and I was gonna ask about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's this. This is Rue. Like I said, this is a really fresh tree. She probably just cut it off strictly off her tree, off her bush. I was like, oh man, this is good stuff. It's potent too. Like you have this anywhere inside. It's broken. It's intense. What are some herbs for parasite cleanses? Let's mention one right there. Rue. Rue is a really good herb for that specifically. Um, Very powerful. So you don't want to use a lot of it. Um, it is an herb that you want to definitely respect because when you use it, it can be really potent. Um, Even just smelling it is really intense. Um, it's also good for antiviral, antifungal. Um, really good for any kind of protection work against, like in baths, for example. There's a few different herbs that I put in the formula with that in the bath. And that's actually one of the soaps that I make because I make different spiritual soaps. Um, Way to help you to fight off attack in your sleep or in your waking state. That's one of the herbs that would be used amongst many others. But
What are
that's
your
a
thoughts?
um.
What are your
Go ahead.
thoughts about Cheney root? I've been drinking Cheney root teas for like 2 weeks lately.
Oh, so how's your results from that? I remember you saying that. What do you think about that?
I actually got it for my son last year because he went to the doctor and they were saying he had um a dead pancreas. So me being me, I didn't want him to take medication because I didn't believe his pancreas was non-functional. I just believe he didn't have the right nutrients.
Right.
So I know herbalists from Jamaica who
Mhm.
I'm friends with on Facebook, and she helps me with a lot of different things. So I reached out to her and asked her what she was prescribed to get his pancreas back activated, and she said Cheney root. And I never gave it to him. I just gave him sea moss, and he was good to go.
Right.
But I had the herb left over, and I never tried it. So I just pulled it out like 2 weeks ago, and I just been making tea, and it's very good.
How you
It's good
feel
for
when you
me.
take it?
Um,
That's something you
that's a
shouldn't take every day, but you should
nah.
take
I
it.
don't. Well, it that's a good question. As far as how it makes me feel, I don't know. It's like robust. Is that might be the answer. Um, I can see the difference. Um, as far as my face. Um, I think when it comes to like my body, I pay attention to my face because then, you know, your skin tells you a lot. Um, but it makes me feel robust. Like I don't know, um, anything that cleanses my blood makes me feel a certain way.
Hmm.
Um, but I was gonna ask you, what do you think
So anything
about?
that's a blood purifier, right, um, is working in two ways. Anything working with the skin is working with the liver, A1. Because the
Okay,
liver dictates the hair, skin, eyes, and nails. It's a major filter, right, in a body. Um, Things purifying the blood is dealing with the liver too, but all fluids in the body is governed by the kidneys. So that also is one of the major functions of those things. So there's certain uh, herbs that like Bodo, for example. She was asking, God was asking about um, parasite cleanses. So that's Bodo, that's white willow bark, that's um, this the cheap the Jane, that's what you were talking about, and then also Ruta or Ru. Um, One some of the basics I always tell people to think about is like thyme, um, in clove, because clove itself is really good in general for those kinds of things. Even if you take essential oil of clove, put it at the tip of your head, like the soft spot. That's a good way to purge and pull things out your system as well. Um, but these things, it's really potent. It's really potent. So you have to really be careful how you use that in that form. But clove powder is a really good one in general. So things that are easy accessible, I would say clove, thyme, boldo, rue. All those things are really accessible. And I talk about really accessible herbs, meaning herbs you can get hold of anywhere. You know,
okay.
yeah.
What
Because
would
I
you? What
generally,
would you?
huh?
I was gonna ask, what would you say the spiritual benefits of Cheney root would be?
Well, just by the very nature of what it does, it would activate or invigorate the body to ward off.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the easiest answer.
okay, I can see that because I feel like I started drinking it at a certain time because I had it for like over a year. I just never opened it, and realizing that my son never needed it as intended. I just started drinking it, and I think certain things happen at a certain time for a certain reason. So I was wondering, like, okay, if I'm drinking Cheney root, just because it's available, or I've been had it, might as well drink it. What would be the reason, on a higher level?
Mm-hmm.
But I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
yeah, yeah, it purifies. You know, purifying the system, purifying the mind, because what does the liver do? But purify. Um, it deals with the hormones. It deals with, like I said, the hair, skin, eyes, and nails. So the sight. It deals with anything that deals with sight is dealing with vitamin A, right? Because the highest concentration of vitamin A in the body is the liver. Um, and so you start to see these things affecting all these other parts of the body. So that would make sense that would be one of the herbs that would be used. So I say it like this: each herb has a specific characteristic to it, based off of where it was grown and how it was grown, and what kind of soil
Okay,
and the region. Morning glory in the Caribbean is different from morning glory here because there's so many different kinds of morning glory,
it came
right?
from Jamaica.
Huh?
It came from Jamaica.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it all depends on the fertile soil. Just
Yeah,
like Louisiana has very fertile soil, right?
true.
Because of the flooding and the this and the that, and that's why you the graveyards are on stilts, right? Because it floods and that. But so think about that, where you're getting like Georgia with the or Mississippi, that red clay, that good soil, right? All depends on how if something's growing on the hillside in the mist, if something's grown in the swamp, or something's grown in the it all depends on where a plant is grown And if it survives in that place and flourishes in that place and adjusts, it's a different plant. Period. Even
Right.
though it may have some properties.
I agree.
Yeah. Just by the nature of what it does and how it has to deal with the things that are surrounding it. Different environment, different plant. Which is just like the same people, right? It's like epigenetics. You know how we our cells adjust to our environment.
Right. We discussed that last week. Or was it like a few
Hmm.
days ago?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Because that's important to understand those things. So, as an awo of Orumila, as a Omuawo or as a Babalawo, right? Um, you study always everything. They say a polymath, right? You study everything. You study everything. Why? Because it's important to. You don't just study things that are um, you study everything. That's the best way to do it. It's everything. You study everything. Always constantly studying. There's never a limit to study, ever. I don't care where, how, and when. There's never a limit to study. Like, subscribe, follow, share. The topic today, for those who are just entering in, is thank you for liking it. That's okay. The topic today specifically is when to say when. When to, you're in a situation where you feel like the situation is not feeding you anymore. It's not the time. It's just time to leave. Because originally I was going to say the topic to be, a babalawo, right? When don't waste a babalawo's time. That was the original topic I was going to go, and we may go into that last time. I'll touch on it today. Don't waste a babalawo's time, or any practitioner's time. If you want to get a divination, then come get a divination. But don't go back and forth, 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 back and forth. Don't waste the time because it's important. Now, if you are scheduled, that's a whole other conversation. I'm not even going down that route. That's a good thing. Right? But I'm just saying, don't waste somebody's time because it's if they put you on a schedule, they put you on a schedule for a reason. And if you going back and forth and playing around, if you're not ready, don't do it. Yeah, that's when you get blocked. Exactly. You know exactly what I'm about to say. That's when you get blocked. That's when you get kicked to the curb. Right? Don't waste the time, though. Do not waste the time. Make sure that you follow through with what you say you're going to do. Make sure that you go into what you're going to do, right? Because it's important. So if you're coming for a divination, do the divination. Don't don't seek to. Oh, I'm gonna get all this information and I don't need a divination because I can just get it. No, it's not the same thing. That would be the difference between using my wisdom and going directly to Ifa. Ifa has the wisdom. I'm merely opening that doorway up for you. But Ifa has the wisdom. Ifa has the knowledge. Right? So talking to me is one thing, but going to Ifa is a completely different. Because Ifa has the an infinite wisdom. Um, so that's why that was the original topic is don't mess with a Babalao's time or don't waste a Babalao's time. But then I said, let's take it beyond that. Let's know when to say when, or when to say when, because it's more than just that. When is it not a good time for you to connect to the situation in general? When is it just time for you just to kind of move on yourself when you don't feel like you're getting fed? And I think that was a more potent topic. That's why I went with that one because it's important. It's important to understand those things because we never, 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 never want to go in and seek to waste the person's time. What's the difference between Opole and Ikinifa? Good morning, good morning. How you doing, Josephine? So Opole is a divining tool, and Ikinifa will go deeper. So you get Odu out of Opole, but you never go seek to catch a thief with Opole. But Abigba, Ikinifa, you can, because it is also a standalone. Um, you can put a bow on directly on it, just like you can with Abigba. Oh, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing amazing. Always Modupo Ifa. I give thanks to Ifa. That's what that means, Modupo Ifa. Yep. But that's the main thing I got you. The Opwele Nikini Fa is that. Yep. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. Um, if you can like, subscribe, follow, share, like, subscribe, follow, share. Those who are subscribed can comment. Those that are not subscribed cannot. You can see for now, but you cannot. You can't do those other things. So eventually, the most of the lives would be specifically for subscribers. But right now, it's open for the most part. But the comments are only coming from subscribers. And if you have any suggestions for topics, you also can do that too. You can DM me as a subscriber and ask me specific, suggest certain things. Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Josephine. Yep. Yeah. So that's important to understand too. So there are different kinds of tools of Ifa. Talked about them earlier. The oldest thereof between Opwete and Ikinifa and Abigba, Abigba would be the oldest. Yep. And it origins and first in certain regions and then expanded consistently throughout the whole continent. Because you'll see versions of it in different places as well. Yeah. Like in Edo, I always say this, but Edo country in Benin City in Nigeria, you see they call it Iha Wega is Abigba. It's the same tool as Abigba. And same thing with the Igbo, same thing with uh, other people. Yep. Any other questions? Anybody want to ask a question? Anybody?
How often do you go to Nigeria?
I have not been since 2010, 2009, 9, 10, somewhere around there. Just because it was a lot of stuff that was going on, and then some things were going on directly in that space that I wouldn't just not. It just hadn't been the right time to it. Again, I always ask if I, but before then it was very regular, extremely regular. Hopefully next sometime this year or next year I'll be going. Hopefully,
Okay.
yeah. And yourself? And so my Luo is here. So the difference is my Luo is here now, and he's from Ekiti State. But so he's from he's there. He's from Ekiti State. Um, and you may have heard someone that came up and talked about him briefly, but yeah, but he's here. You know,
I
his
want to
family's
go.
here. Huh?
I want to go. I have yet to go.
Yeah. No, it's potent. It is. It is potent. Yeah, and it's definitely it depends on who you're traveling with, but it was I never had a problem. I've heard some horror stories, but I've never personally had a problem going in or coming out of Nigeria. But this time now would be a little bit more volatile, and I wouldn't go. but there's a lot. There's definitely a lot. And like I said, all my teachers have been from there. Abo, yeah.
Abu atoe warrior from Bawani.
Da ni dupe.
How you doing? Yeah, going to Nigeria, it could be good and it could be bad. The government is like the people with the government. Well, can I speak on your live? I'm sorry. Uh-oh. The people, the government is like the people there is like the government here, and the government there is like the opposite. So the government don't help you there. It's more so of the people that live there. Like you're gonna see the police asking you for money almost on every corner that you go on. You got these little fake security people in the different villages that won't let you go through unless you pay them a certain amount of money. It'd be crazy.
That's
It's
why I
really
said
crazy.
it really depends on who you travel with. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because when I went, um, even at Ikeja when I flew in, I didn't have any problems. But I traveled before too to other places, and then so um, I know not to let touch my bag. I know not to let anybody, um, maneuver me into whatever. But I, it's important to have good people that you're going to.
Right.
Because the reason why I say it like that is because when you do, they won't allow certain things to happen.
Right.
Like my first Aluo, Adaba Agbola, rolled out the red carpet for me. Definitely,
Right. Right.
he definitely opened up the doorway and made sure that as soon as I came out the airport, it was like he
Oh
swooped me
yeah.
up. And
Hey, that's another crazy place. I thought I was gonna have to knock some out. You hear me? Everybody be walking up to you trying to sell you everything. Everybody be trying to take. They pulling your suitcase off the thing, but telling you need to pay them. Who finna pay you? No, we're not doing that. I ain't asked you to do that. I could did that myself.
exactly, exactly, and that's why you don't let anybody touch your bags.
Mm-hmm.
Never let anybody touch your bags. So because that's just on, oh, do you need a cell phone to call? Nope, I'm good. They're coming
Mm-hmm.
because you should have already made arrangements
Right.
before you go, right? And that's why I said that's one place you definitely don't want to just randomly go travel by
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Without having no visa too. I got my visa on arrival. So before I went there, like London, cause I had went to London before I went there my first time, and they was like giving me so much problems and stuff like that. Yeah, but I had ended up getting my like visa on arrival and stuff, so it was crazy.
I can imagine. I can imagine because that visa is a whole other situation because
Mhm.
you got to dash after you pay for the visa,
Mhm. Yep.
right? And so, but even with that, again, it's really important to have because when you do it before you go, then you have somebody do a letter for you,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Like my Lou did a letter. Uh,
Invitation letter.
mhm, did a invitation letter for me specifically so that I could come, so that I could connect to, so that I knew where I was going to, because you step into that airport
And then
and you
they
make
get the what is it called, like interviewing you up in that little room. Yeah.
or not just in the room, just where you going to right at the custom when you first come through the gate. Where you going?
How much
And I
money
find
you got in your
in the
bank
morning,
account?
in the morning time is the best time to go. I would say because early morning, arriving there early in the morning is the best time to come. Who was now right now is very volatile. This is not the time really to go.
Yeah.
People have gone around this time, but it's very volatile. It's not the time.
Right. Right.
Um, for many different reasons.
Huh?
I said for many different reasons.
Right.
So what the topic is today is when to say when. Hold on just a second though, be free. Ty Solo, did I answer your question?
Yeah, sounds like I gotta get a lot a lot to consider before going to Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a good
Oluo.
uh, you have a good allure, you have a good space that they take care of their business, then it's very easy to get in and get out, right? If you have somebody that is, for example, when we did go by those soldiers, uh, we did go by those places, there was no problem because the people that I was with, they didn't have it, and they had certain kind of things that they dealt with, so they didn't have it. They wasn't having it.
Okay.
And so it all depends on who you're you're you're, you're traveling with. And so if you go arriving there at nighttime, not a good thing to arrive at nighttime ever, because it's not good to travel at night. Period. Period. Um, and so you want to be careful about those kinds of things. But all of that should be taken care of way before you get there. If you're traveling to Nigeria, you should always have your visa and your other things that you have way in advance so that you don't have any issues when you get there. Very simple. It is simple to do, but then you also have to, make sure that you always
Prepare
put
yourself. Take out
extra.
that extra money. Make sure what's them people called that you contact if something go wrong? Um
And never carry your passport on you. Always have a copy of your passport. You have it with you when you first get there, clearly, right? But always when you travel and when you do X, Y, and Z in the midst of whatever, copy. Always have a copy of your passport. Always have a copy of those things. Always make sure that you have certain things in line, on point, because you want to make sure that those things are taken care of in a certain kind of way, right? So definitely a letter of recommendation. Definitely you want to have your visa and stuff like that taken care of way before, because you have to have your ticket before you have your visa. So that's why you really want to make sure that you have great communication with people. Um, it was the SIM cards before, that's how we put a SIM card inside a phone, but sometimes that doesn't always um, flow, and it depends on the kind of phone that you got, right? So it's really important to do that too, if you seek to have a phone. Um, but then also, oh, something happened. I don't know what happened. But that's really important before you travel. Traveling is anytime you travel outside, but it's really important to have everything that you need before you get there. Just be prepared. Be prepared to have not only the documents in order, the place that you're staying. Make sure you have the address that you're going to, or hotel. Try not to travel at night, meaning uh, if you're going to arrive, try to get there by the early morning or the morning, because then it'll be easier for people to come in and come out. Won't be as packed. Always making sure that you have clear line of communication, if not just with your Luo, but others, maybe one or two other people that are there. You always have a number to somewhere to somebody, right? Um, in Nigeria and outside of Nigeria. Always make sure that just few things, and all that's going in planning, the logistics. That's one thing that you should be able to do with your Luo or the person that you're going to connect to in general. Um, Anywhere you travel, but definitely in Nigeria. Make sure you have all those things online. If there is, you do have to go to a hotel beforehand. Make sure check it out, see what's going on. If you are going to, for example, the Oshun Festival, in Oshobo, because you got to travel from Ikeja to Oshobo. It's not like right there. Um, so make sure that you have somebody, some connection, something that will get you there. Um, Make sure if you do not, that you are very aware of everything that you do with people. And again, I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem in Nigeria, right? And it could be just the people that I've gone with because I've always gone there for work, right? And so I've always make sure that you just cross your T's and dot your I's, that you're aware of what's going on, very direct and clear, unwavering, direct and clear when you're dealing with people. And it's not rude. They don't take it as rude because, you know, like anywhere you go to Ghana, you go to wherever, but Nigeria specifically. Don't give up your number. Definitely don't give up your email to folks. Don't do that. Don't do that. Because guess what's going to happen when you get back? You're going to get 50 million emails from people for that. No, not even the people that you gave the email to. Don't do that. Don't do that. Now, contacts, definitely. Get their contacts, but don't give up your information. Your Lou should already have your number. If you have somebody there that you've been talking to and connecting to, you should know them directly. You should have seen them in video chat or something. You know them. It's not just some random act. I saw you on the internet and we cool now. That doesn't mean anything. Double check and recheck and double check who this person is. There's always ways to do that. Always. Who is this person? Who recommended him to you? What is it that they are seeking to do or connect you to? Is the thing that you're going there for is the thing that you wanted to be initiated into? Make sure that everything that you do, that you check and recheck and recheck and recheck. And before you leave, get a divination. Do that. It's important. Get a divination before you leave so that you have clarity. Because anytime you get ready to leave the States, I'll just say it in that way, that the States or anywhere really, but definitely the States, there's always going to be haters and things like that. So don't tell everybody where you're going, when you're going, why you're going there. It's not nobody's business. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's important to get these things primarily taken care of in a certain kind of way because, um, you know, this is your destiny. It's your path. It's things that you seek to do. Even if you're just traveling to Nigeria, though. If you're traveling to Nigeria or to Burkina Faso or Mali or Ghana or wherever, you always want to be prepared. But definitely be prepared. Be focused. Be focused on what it is that's going on, right? Because you want to be fully prepared for anything that goes forward, right? Don't flash your cash. That's basic stuff that you wouldn't do here. Don't do there. Don't flash your money because your money's going to end up being more money there. So don't flash it. Only have what you need. Put it in certain pockets of what it is. Understand the money. Make sure you get this understanding of that money while you're there. Because the understanding money here of it is different than when you get there. Because the money itself will be, transferred in many different ways. I put it like that. Or by the bank, which is the worst place to do it. Um, so that's why I said you have to ask somebody that really knows and really has done this before, so that you're not kind of free for all. You want to make sure that that person that's inviting you there has things in order and has done this before, so that you can get in and you can get out easily, right? Um, and so, those are the kinds of things that you want to think about too. When you're dealing with a teacher in general, you want to make sure that that teacher is really somebody that you want to be able to build with, connect to, and has your back, regardless. Now, if they just let you go out by yourself, because any good teacher would never let you go out by yourself, ever. You shouldn't. You're in a foreign place. If you have somebody that can have your back in X, Y, and Z, have it. Let them have it. Let them help you in that way. You know, but definitely make sure. Um, yeah. And again, I've never had a bad problem. I've never, ever. There are people that do have problems. but I've never had a problem. Not once. Not once. Only the major problem I've had getting there was just because people were. That's why I said don't tell everybody your business before you leave. Just go. I mean, obviously, next of kin and stuff like that. They know where you're going. They got a number for you and X, Y, and Z. But other than that, don't tell nobody. It's nobody's business. Because the more people will know, the more haters you got. The more haters you got, the harder it'll get to go. Because everybody's trying to tug and pull, right? Always something else. So just be careful. Careful in that way. Very, very, very important. This. So any questions, Todd Solo? Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
All right, all right, all right, all right. Dinah B, any other questions? No? Yes? You still with me? So free. The topic today, like I said, just cut off. Okay. The topic today was, thank you, I appreciate it. The topic today was, when to say when. And so what that means is basically when to disassociate yourself with someone. You know, why, the things to kind of look out for, the things that, if you, how to connect with someone, why should you, personality wise, connecting to someone, building with someone. That's the basically when to say, okay, something's not, I don't feel it. This is not working for me. I need to back up because it is your Ori.
I was just gonna say, whenever your ORE tell you that that person means you no good,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. But
Like you say, if they stay on top of, I grew up on consultant E5 before doing E5. I grew up on doing every 16 days for your readings, to tell what's going on in your life, and then you follow whatever that reading tell you. But if my reading tell me, hey, oh boy ain't no good for me, oh boy finna get from around me, you hear me? Same thing with old girl. It don't matter who you is. Because like you said, if you got some trustworthy godparents and you stay on top of your old dudes, learning the old dudes before even going through some initiations, because a lot of people don't learn them until until after they get initiated, and then they be getting initiated and don't know nothing. You know what I'm saying? When in reality, to make a great Babalawo or to make an Iyanifa, you supposed to have been studied under the religion for years. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't gonna say years, you know what I'm saying? But you have to know enough. You know what I'm saying? So basically, I will always just say, like, I always consult, and whatever Ifa tells me, or like if I consult through Ifa or if I consult through Paulo, whatever comes out, that's what I'm rocking with. That's what I'm
so
rocking with.
with traditional, somebody asked me that earlier. With traditional, would you, when going through traditional means, would it, when would you know to get initiated into Palo and stuff like that? So traditional, there is no Palo.
Right. So I've been initiated into Palo since a little girl. Before I crossed over and went to Ifa. How it go? Because I came from Lukumi before crossing over to Isheshe. You can't just. Like I have to tell my God, I tell my God kids this all the time because they be thinking that I be like, hey, that's a person destiny. It don't be just, oh, I want to get scratched. It don't work like that. You get what I'm saying? And you can't go from that light side to that dark side. You come from that dark side, then go to that light side. You know what I'm saying? So
So with traditional Ifa in general, it is, that's what we were talking about. There's a lot of angles to it.
A lot of it be like a with the
Hold on a second. Hold on a
uh,
second. So there's a lot of angles to traditional E5. And so because of that, when we talk about our Bigba, whether the light or the dark or the all those other things, our Bigba encompasses everything. But our Bigba itself is comes from a tree called Igiakba, the tree that kills negativity. Um, and so that's our Bigba. Um, so go ahead, Silent Wisdom. I thought you unmiked yourself. Did you? Oh, I thought you. So, but yeah, so that's important. Important to realize those things in general when we're dealing with the tradition. Because again, when we talk about Isheshe, again, big misnomer that Isheshe is um, just meaning traditional. Anybody can be having a Isheshe on this planet because it's your mother, your father, and your Ori Inu in the path of that Ori Inu on earth. That is Isheshe. Um, and so from that, and so everyone on this planet Earth has an Ori Inu, your inner head, your focus, your path, your destiny, your soul, your fate. Because of that, um, when we're dealing with, to Pre-Freeze point, you study before. That's always my recommendation, 100%, that you study way before you go into the grove. You should never allow anybody to push you into the grove right away. That doesn't make any sense. Because you need to know how to throw obiabata, kola nut, right? Because these are the things that how you communicate with your own ori. You don't need it to be initiated to deal with kola nut, obiabata, four-lobe kola nut. Um, and the reason why is it's so important to understand before even getting into any orisha or anything is because because it has a certain kind of ashe in and of itself. And so when you take that kola nut and you use that, oh, good night. Definitely, definitely. I appreciate you, Dinah B. Thank you for subscribing as well. I appreciate you. Odabo. Um, and so when you take that kola nut and you propitiate certain entities, right? And the only thing that you can't use kola nut for is Shango. But when you start to use that, have a good understanding of that, and then knowing the odus that are correlating to those signatures in that, then it gives you a good foundation to a lot of other things, right? Because you don't want to bring a bunch of things in your house before you know how to use it, because it happens a lot. You want to make sure that you fully are rooted in the things that you do and have good understanding of those things before you move on to something else. Don't rush. You don't have to rush to have a lot of different things. You don't have to rush to have a bunch of people surrounding you. Because just because you get initiated to Ifa, or anything for that matter, doesn't mean that you know all that there is to know. Even though you may have started study beforehand. Because the mysteries only really fully begin when you get fully initiated. Then those things will really begin to open up the doorway for you in a lot of ways, especially with Abigba. Those things open up immediately. So those are really important things to remember and know because there's so much in the way of Ifa. And there's so many lineages, right? So many different lineages, right? There's so many different things that um, whether it be coming from the Dahomey or whether it be coming from the Igbo people or Ewe or the Edo, all of these people plus there's 16 different kingdoms plus and a whole lot more than 16 kingdoms, but the primary 16 kingdoms are levels of levels of levels of levels of so many different lineages, So there's so much. There's no one person on this earth could ever know all things. And that's also the first thing. If you encounter somebody saying, "Oh, I know that all that you need to know," that's a lie. Because there are infinite Odu. I said it. Infinite Odu. Because it is a binary system. Because it is a binary system, there is no end to Odu. So when we see that with those tools of Abigba and Epa and those other ones that go beyond that. That's why it's good to understand. That's why it's good to learn. That's why it's good to study. First thing I would say, if you want to begin study, of course, look into the culture, see what's going on, listen to the music, things like that. But first and foremost, the language. Learn Yoruba. I'm not saying you have to be 100% fluent. Just learn Yoruba before you travel. Learn it. Learn a basic understanding of it. That's good, and that's a very good thing to do. You don't want to go through assembly line and just, oh, just got to get initiated because da da da. No, you don't have to rush into anything ever. Have to rush into anything. And just because it comes up in the Odu doesn't mean you got to get initiated tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. Right now, maybe sometimes those Odus may come up, and within those Odus, you begin to um, oh, sometimes those Odus dictate certain things that you do immediately, right? But even then, you should never be rushed or forced to go into anything right away, right? Because it takes time. And you don't want to bring anything in your house, apartment, whatever, without having full understanding how to use it, how to open it, how to close it yourself. And you never want to bring anything into your house without knowing how to throw obiabata and a robo, because you need to know how to communicate with it. Apple, have a good one, Ty Solo. It was good seeing you. Yep. I know it's getting almost 1:30 in the morning. It's almost 1:30. I'll talk to you soon. Yep. Was that top join? No, we're not doing that one. So, any other questions, anything like that regarding the topic? Let me know. I'm gonna be on for probably another 30 minutes or so, and then I'm getting off. Why you can't feed coconut to Shango? It's a taboo. That's not his foods. His foods are rogbo. That's what you would do with Kabyasi. Is orogbo. You would never give Kabyasi um, obiobata ever. It's like there's certain foods that you don't give to certain other people. Like SU, you don't give adin. You know, it's a taboo. Yep. Any other questions or anything like that? Any questions concerning what we've been talking about? Any questions about um, um any the main topic of today? Anything like that? Okay. So if there is no other questions and no other, I will say again, I said it before, but I won't say it again. So the comments are strictly for subscribers. We'll be doing classes and things with the subscribers soon. With herbs, I'm a 10th generation herbalist. I'm a Babalawo Alagbigba. So if I studies and work divinations, DM me, and we'll go from there. Um, Other than that, any other thing, class wise, if you have any suggestions about topics, we can always go into that as well. Primarily, I go into EFI and answering questions in that way. But we can go into herbs as well, specifically certain kind of herbs. EFI. But if you want to go into specific herbs, like today we talked about, the main herb today was rue, because I got a bunch of it. I got a bunch of it in. It was, I like to go down to a few places to get some herbs. I'll go forage for them. But yeah, that is what's going on. Nothing else. I appreciate people coming in. This. I appreciate people coming in. I appreciate people coming, asking questions. If you have any other further questions on this subject or any other, feel free to DM me. Very important. I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you liking, subscribing, those who have done that. Thank you for following. Thank you for sharing. Because you could have been in many different places. You didn't have to be here with me. So I appreciate that you spent that time with me. If you have any information that you want to know about Abigba, because Abigba is not really known in the diaspora. So if you have any questions about that specifically, feel free to ask those questions as well. You can DM me and we can get more into what that means and what Ifa Abigba divination looks like and what that is. Again, it's 4 Odu instead of 1. And then out of those 4 primary Odu, there are underlying Odu that are there as well in one throw. So it is not an Opwele. It is not. It is a standalone, 100%. You don't need anything else but Abigba, because Abigba is a standalone. As is Akini-Fa, but Abigba is older than thereof. There are things that you can see with Abigba that there's things that Alabigbas can see in Opwele and Ikini-Fa that they cannot see unless they have dealt with Abigba that they can't see in Abigba. But so those are those things, and there are many other things concerning with it. That just takes study, time, energy, effort. So again, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for volunteering and connecting to the live. Again, because you could have been in many other places, but you chose to be here. So I appreciate you being here. If you have any other questions, feel free to DM me or to DM me. And then remember to follow, because if you haven't followed, I can't respond back to you. Okay? So thank you again. Thank you, Free, for coming up. Thank you, all those that were here. Ty Solo. Who else was up today? Silent Wisdom, Tay. Everybody that came up today. If I'm forgetting your name up, I apologize. But thank you, Goddess Shuriri, for being here as well. And I'll see you next time. Or double.